The meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Ferguson.
Present.
Director Fons.
Present.
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director Jackson.
Present.
Director Reza.
Present.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Vinoy.
Present.
Director Zomber.
Present.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Here.
That's 9 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And I just want to note for the listening audience that we also have our member from the Student Advisory Board, Mr. De La Cruz, is also here tonight. The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. The meeting may also be accessed via the MPS YouTube stream, the link to which may be found on the MPS website on the upcoming meetings page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas.
Bienvenidos.
Un momento.
¡Ay! Oh, okay. Pues buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si deseas escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al número 312-626-6799. Otra vez, el número es 312-626-6799. E introduzca al número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary, Dr. Owen Moore. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. For the sake of fairness tonight and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the speaking time allowed to any one speaker. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. And now, given that our focus this year is literacy, we have some help with our messages from one of our young readers. Austin is a 7th grader at Cooper School.
We're going to have Kingsley tonight because that's what's there. My apologies.
Perfect.
Welcome to tonight's committee meeting. The committee will accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the item for which they have registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the committee will begin its discussion, and no additional comments will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Like this: Tanya Jacobs, Jacobs. Written testimony will also be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201, 2181. Or email it to governance@milwaukeek12wisconsin.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments, questions, or requests should be directed to the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, or those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees.
Thank you, Kingsley, for being tonight's reader. If you have a child that would like to read for the board meeting, send a message to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. I want to welcome everyone to this evening's informational overview and public hearing on the 2026-27 Superintendent's proposed budget. We are grateful for the community's interest in the district's budget process, and we look forward to hearing from you. Before we open the floor for public comment, I need to provide a brief but important statement about the scope of tonight's hearing and a limitation that applies to the board and district administration this evening. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to receive public input on the superintendent's proposed budget for the 2026-27 school year. That includes school programming, classroom resources, staffing levels, facilities, capital needs, and the district's fiscal priorities. We welcome substantive input on all of those subjects. As many of you are aware, the district is currently a party to a pending proceeding before the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission concerning the district's collective bargaining with the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. That proceeding is active, and a hearing before work is scheduled for next week. Because that proceeding is active, it would be improper for board members or district administration to engage substantively in a public forum on the matters that are before work. Those matters include the timing of the base wage increase, the district's bargaining proposals, MTEA's bargaining proposals, the April 28th board resolution on impasse, and the merits of either party's position in the work proceeding. Members of the public are absolutely welcome to address those subjects in their public comments if they choose, and we will hear them. We will simply not be able to be in a position to respond, and I'm telling you that now so it does not feel dismissive when it occurs. The reason is not indifference. It is the same reason that parties to any legal proceeding do not comment publicly on the merits of a pending case. For all other matters relating to the superintendent's proposed budget, we look forward to your input. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and whether you are a district employee, parent, or community member before you begin. Thank you. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, what is the item before us?
Madam Chair, the item before us tonight is the informational overview and public hearing on the 2026-27 Superintendent's proposed budget. This is an informational item for discussion only. No action will be taken.
Thank you. Would the administration please present the budget?
Chair O'Halloran, President Zombor, Vice President Ferguson, and members of the board. Dr. Brenda Caselius, Superintendent. This evening, we're presenting our proposed 2026-27 budget. I first want to just start by thanking all of the folks you saw coming in here, our budget team, Chief Financial Officer Aisha Sawa, and particularly our partners at the Council of Great City Schools, Judith Marte, Ken and Chuck, and 2 wonderful individuals who have supported us during this process, as well as our budget analysts, our entire budget team, our accounting team, our rec department pitched in, and so many others, and also Mr. Chasen and the Office of Accountability looking at our books and making sure that we've covered everything. This has been a full team effort. As you know, the district has been in a difficult financial position for many years. And we have been taking our time to be very deliberate about this budget, given we have a $50 million deficit, and trying to make sure that we were accounting for all of the items within the budget, our revenues and our expenditures, and addressing any overspending or under budgeting that we've been doing. I realize that this has caused some anxiety and some stress for people over the past 3 months as we've been trying to uncover all of those difficulties within the budget because of the lack of audits. But taking that time and due diligence and having feedback over the past 3 months has really helped in preparation of this budget. This budget puts our resources closest to our students and classrooms while addressing our $46 million deficit. We'll go into the details in a moment, but I want to share a few key items at a high level. We're adding more teachers, classroom teachers, more paraprofessionals, and maintaining our commitment through the referendum for art, music, and physical education positions. We're also investing in our valued employees with a cost of living increase, budgeting for steps and lanes, and up to 40 hours for paraprofessionals and children's health assistants. We also had to make difficult decisions to address the deficit while prioritizing our investments in classrooms and employees. The board approved position reductions that reduced the number of district administrators and administrative staff and assistant principals, and we reduced contract spending as well. I'll share more detail, but the 46 million figure includes 6 million in contracts and 40 million in short-term charter school savings, as we've been sharing in the past few weeks. The savings help us reinvest in classrooms, address the deficit, and balance the budget with other rising costs like wages, benefits, and utilities. This is a rebalancing of resources after audit showed us we were more heavily staffed in central office and administrative roles, and that we needed to have more staff in our schools and in our classrooms. While this has been a challenging chapter for the district, our students will remain at the forefront of our decisions as we work to restore the financial health of the district. It's important to understand the context in which we are presenting this budget. We work in a system of rigid and complex state revenue formulas, significant inflation, and a nationwide shortage of teachers. Our per pupil student spending is controlled by the state revenue limit. As we have shared, the lack of inflationary increases in the revenue limit has created a long-term structural imbalance for the district. We are also building this budget at a time of critical need to improve academic outcomes. As you know, the 2024 Nations Report Card showed that just 9% of our fourth graders are reading on grade level. Our graduation rates have grown to their highest point in 15 years, and yet more work is still needed to be done so all students graduate on time in 4 years and ensure that students are ready for college and career. And we continue to see declining enrollment. The largest loss we forecast, next year comes from our charter schools moving to other authorizers. When we look at our traditional district-operated schools, we're expecting a loss of 300 to 400 students, or about 1%. In the past, the district had used the prior year's enrollment to build the next year's budget. This year, we're using a more sophisticated model that looks at cohorts to help better estimate enrollment at the school and grade level. For example, in a high school where a larger than typical class moves through the grades, you may see higher enrollment for that 4-year period. But then when the larger class graduates and the incoming 9th grade class is smaller, like the others, you can expect to see declining enrollment through the years. So that rolling average of the classrooms in the cohort model is what we're using. With the reality of our financial and academic needs and an accurate enrollment picture, we're following our board-approved priorities in building this budget. Protecting resources for classrooms, keeping schools safe, investing in academic achievement, and restoring our fiscal health. A wide array of community input has helped shape the proposal starting back last year as we started to craft the proposals with listening sessions throughout and some small group sessions that we held with some of our employee groups. This includes meeting at the board levels, the district advisory council, school level discussions that were held at our school engagement councils with our academic superintendents and principals and their school engagement councils, direct messages to our staff and families, weekly meetings with principals, meetings with groups of high school students has been a pure joy. I've been in 7 high schools talking with our students about their hopes and dreams and desires for the budget, and meeting with stakeholders like the Wisconsin Policy Forum and other civic groups like the Rotary, the Mayor's Cabinet, the GMC, just different groups around all of Milwaukee to review our budget, and there were 4 hearings that we also held. I'll now ask Chief Financial Officer Aicha Sawa to share some additional detail, and I'll be back later after to take your questions.
Good evening, Chair O'Halloran and fellow board members. Aicha Sawa, CFO. Before I start, I wanted to also give a shout out to our entire budget team. They have been working many, many long hours throughout, the last 3, 4, 5 months as we've been developing the standard of care, moving towards centralized budgeting. There were a lot of new changes and different processes during this budget season. And at the same time, it required many hours in collaboration amongst all of our different departments within Central, all of our principals, school leaders, various members of leadership. And additionally, our state and federal grants team, our procurement team, they've been doing a lot of different analyses with the contract deep dives. And then our accounting teams, like Dr. Caselius mentioned, with all of our financial reporting, issuing our audits. And I would also like to say that all of our teams, every time we have a critical juncture and a major deadline, all of these different departments within finance are always stepping in and jumping in to help each other. So it is one accomplishment together, and I'm really proud of every single one of the staff, managers, directors. It has been a really good team effort. So moving on into our 27 budget. Our 27 budget is budgeted at $1.615 billion of revenue and $1.597 billion in expenditures. And this is to support over 9,500 educators and staff supporting more than 60,000 students. As you can see, our revenue does not equal our expenditures, and this is due to the FY25 deficit that we realized. And the difference is not exactly 46 million, as you can see, and this is because this is the total budget with all of our funds and various grant expenditures as well. And as we have shared, our audited financial statements identified this $46 million deficit in the district's main operating fund, which is our WOOFR Fund 10. And this made, obviously, our budget more challenging, and we will continue to be transparent about that. So we wanted to highlight some major contributing factors to this deficit. And these include under budgeting for debt service, nutrition fund deficit, our salary and busing overages, and having some revenues that were under budgeted, which is why the figures above do not equal the 46 million exactly. And the debt service fund and the nutrition fund are not allowed to carry a negative fund balance. So those transfer outs had to happen from Fund 10, which is why the deficit increased from Fund 10. However, we've had to adjust our budgets for accuracy in FY27, and we've remediated a lot of those issues up above. So for the debt service fund, we actually remediated that for this current year budget and budgeted correctly, and then we made sure that it was budgeted correctly for the FY27 budget. And then we've really been making sure and looking through all of our budget lines and looking at those variances to make sure that we budget accurately. And at the same time, we've been working with Power School, who is our vendor for our ERP, and being able to implement better budgetary controls on the system side, but we're also actively developing monitoring tools for the current year and then going into 27 so that we can bring some of those reports to you, to the board, and then use them internally for our own forecasting. And as this slide shows us all the different revenue buckets that we have at the district, you can see that we have state and federal government grants, and then local property taxes, some donor revenue, and some revenue from the local business community. Our revenues are allocated by the state and federal governments per student to support their education. So this is through our state equalization aid, per pupil state aid, and then federal title funding, and then state grants such as AGR. And we continue to be grateful for the voters of Milwaukee who approved our referendum in 2020 and then also in 2024. And as we were raising the revenue limits in order for our increasing costs, they phased in $51 million for the current year, and then $47 million coming for the 26-27 year. And next year, for the FY28 budget, we will be getting an additional $14 million in revenue. And then for FY29, we will not have any new revenue. And so on this slide, you've seen this chart many times before. This is where the state the state revenues lag the inflation, so by nearly $3,400 since 2009 per pupil. So as the costs increase and the revenue doesn't keep up, then that kind of increases the burden on the local taxpayer. But once you kind of hit that total revenue limit, we don't have any more revenue you can do. So if your expenditures exceed your revenues, the only way you can really catch up that revenue is if you went out to referendum. So once that revenue limit is done, there's no other way to recoup that. So this next slide shows our expenditures. As you can see, salaries, benefits, and other wages makes up the most of this pie chart, which comes in around 70%. I mean, we are a service organization, so our labor is going to be the largest cost. And then our purchase services is $316 million. You know, you've heard us over the last couple of months talk about contract deep dives and everything that we've been doing for reducing our contracts. However, we do have a large portion of that chunk that is legally required. A good portion of that is like transportation, charter schools. We have Title I pass-through for our non-public schools, and then technology and utilities. And so we continue to work to restore the fiscal health of our district. But at the same time, we're committed to our children. And this year, we've implemented the standard of care, and we've had an increase of 150 teachers in order to reduce our class sizes and lower the student-to-teacher ratio. And we've had a thorough review, as you know, of our central office and our central office functions that yielded us a savings of $18.2 million for our upcoming budget. And then a strategic reduction in force that you approved that will provide almost $30 million in savings for the district. We've also had a decrease in that purchase services line of $6 million in contracts, and then $40 million of short-term savings, which comes from the charter schools that will be leaving under our authorizer. And this helps address the deficit, but just wanted to re-emphasize that with the increased costs of, you know, inflation, busing, fuel costs, this higher salaries, this is all kind of a balancing act in order to get us to the fiscal health. And now I will turn it back over to Dr. Cassellius to finish out our comments.
As Aicha mentioned, we have made reductions across the central office departments while increasing the funding that's going to our school budgets. We also eliminated one of 2 deputy superintendent positions authorized by the board and reorganized the Office of Schools underneath the Office of Deputy Superintendent to create even greater efficiencies. And as we've shared, we are creating a new department to lead some of our equity and belonging work across the district with dedicated staff for Black and Latino male achievement, gender identity and inclusion, positive behavior restorative practices, and I think I got all of those. They'll be working together with our school-based behavior intervention teams and our psychologists, social workers, and counselors in a really strategic way that will create a district-wide impact and build school capacity for that work so that we won't have more limited work in just a few schools or a number of schools, but really trying to have a full-wide, district-wide strategy so that every school could benefit from the leadership in these identity and belonging groups across all of the district. Some of that funding is a mix of both board funds and grant funds. I want to talk a bit about our investments. The additional teacher and paraprofessional positions will help us manage and reduce our class size. New class size guidelines will help give more students one-on-one attention so all students can learn and learn to read. And we have to give our students a good chance at learning to read so that then they can learn content in the intermediate, middle, and high school grades and achieve and thrive in school. This next slide reflects our commitment to investing in student-facing staff with more teachers, more paraprofessionals, and continuing our commitment to art, music, and physical education. You can see the additions there. We put in the subcategory that you see highlighted there just to make sure people know that there wasn't any reductions in our school nurses as well. Adding more teachers to manage and reduce class size is a step toward building a stronger standard of care across all our schools. We're balancing resources more equitably in the district, where we've had a history of some have schools and some have not schools, and we want to make sure that this is our first step. I think this is going to be a multi-year rebalancing and making sure that what we have done this year is sound, and we'll be evaluating that and bringing back to the board how well we were able to fill positions, how well we were able to manage the class size. We are now monitoring our enrollment 3 times a week with our academic superintendents in terms of the applications that are coming into schools, so we can be more precise so that on third Friday there won't be as many moves that there are and disruptions to the learning environment while students are in school. We also worked with the state to create new instructional facilitator positions that will support our literacy plan and strong literacy instruction in our schools. This is similar to a position that I had heard last year principals and teachers talking about called the SST position, a position that was used for instruction, but more precisely at the capacity level and more precisely worked on the areas in which students are not achieving at the school. It might be specifically in math, or some of our students in special demographic groups who aren't achieving, like some of our bilingual students. So we want to make sure that those schools are getting specific instruction and support in those areas to which the state has identified them as needing improvement, which has made the state happier that we are building that capacity at the building level and using those dollars as appropriated. And we've budgeted our cost of living increase, bringing our employees to a base building 2.63% wage increase by January 27th, January 2027. And that is with a 1.5% increase with steps and lanes in July and a 1.13% increase in January. We've also budgeted, as we said and promised, with the steps and lanes that reward staff for longevity and educational achievement. We're also committed to a progressive approach to support workers on the lower end of the wage scale, and this is going to be a multi-year effort that I would like to bring forward to the board in a progressive budget. We're starting with our CHAs and our paras by increasing their hours, as well as providing a stipend with our CHAs. I still need to meet and confer with MTA on those matters. This has always been a goal of this budget. I know it was challenging when we started building the budget and we were not certain we had the funds, and I'm grateful for the patience of our staff as we worked to make certain we had those funds and now are able to offer those 40 hours. We're also moving principals to 12-month positions to support teacher hiring, summer school, professional development, and families seeking to enroll in the summer. And we continue to address our vacancy adjustment so that we don't balance our budget with an over-reliance on vacant positions staying vacant. We have a year-round staffing strategy in place and are committed to having a licensed teacher in every single classroom. In addition to the 40 hours, we are budgeting a stipend for our children's health assistants. Again, we need to still meet and confer with MTA on that. And we continue our commitment to art, music, and PE teaching positions with a slight increase in the total number, as you saw on the earlier slide, with an addition of 6 art, music, or PE teachers. We are budgeting an increase in transportation costs, given the fuel costs all of us are feeling, and other related energy and utility expenses. We're budgeting something that our school counselors have been seeking for many, many years, a 200-day calendar that aligns with their colleagues, social workers, and psychologists, so they can work together to better meet the needs of our students and support our students. We continue to follow the timeline we laid out to the board as we started this process, which brings us to tonight's presentation and our statutory public hearing and vote later this month. Before I take questions, I want to share a few closing thoughts. Since I arrived in Milwaukee just more than a year ago, the number one thing teachers have asked me to do is address class size. Our students deserve a fighting chance to learn how to read and and I've built this budget proposal that gives them that chance. They've also asked me about special education and serving our students with special needs and having too many students to manage in their class who have special needs. We did a special ed audit, and I anticipate that there will be costs associated with implementing that audit, which are not currently set aside. So I implore the state legislature to fully fund the 42% that they already promised, and as they're discussing the 60%, that they also consider the 60% reimbursement for the services that we provide to our special ed students. This is incredibly important to not only our students who have disabilities, but all students. And also, because they already fund private schools at 90%, I see no reason why this would be too hard to fund our students at 60%. I visited a school this week with 400 students that has been trying to get an assistant principal for years, something that schools with more resources were able to do. They're getting an assistant principal under our standard of care, which was typically 1 to 500 in Milwaukee, but when we had ESSER funding and some additional revenue from the referenda funding, our principals were able to buy some additional support. But we funded not at 1 to 500 because we know that we still are working on our culture and climate within our schools. We funded our schools at 1 to 350, which is much lower than Madison, Racine, Green Bay, Kenosha, and other districts around Wisconsin and other large urban districts. This process has been incredibly challenging because of our deficit, and we know from our Office of Accountability forecast that without making these hard decisions now, that deficit could grow into the hundreds of millions of dollars into the future. And we're hoping that by making these hard decisions now, we'll have less difficult decisions to make in the future. But I do know that there will be very difficult decisions next year if the legislature doesn't act and we aren't able to get additional revenue. These budget decisions are among the hardest in my almost 40-year career. Yet in the end, this is a student-first budget that recognizes the tremendous value of our employees, and it also recognizes the need for us to improve student achievement. With 91% of our students not reading on grade level and a $46 million deficit caused in part by overspending, we cannot continue to keep rolling budgets from year to year and copying and pasting those budgets. We cannot keep doing the same thing. We have to change in a way that redirects our resources closest to students, invests in our people, and makes the tough decisions to restore our fiscal health. That is why we've done this budget proposal the way that we have, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Before we turn to members of the committee for questions, we'll start with public testimony. Madam Secretary, do we have virtual speakers?
We do. We have a few virtual speakers who
Okay,
are online.
let's start with them to see if they're still on the platform, and if not, then we can go to in-person and try to recover anyone who may have dropped.
Okay, I have Kristen Payne. Are you online? Kristen
am.
Payne? Yes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. Good evening. My name is Kristen Payne, Payne, and I am an MPS parent. I am speaking on behalf of MPS Parents for a Fair Budget, a grassroots coalition of families representing school communities across the district. We appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and are continuing to review the budget materials that were provided in advance of tonight's meeting. We want to begin by acknowledging that the district is operating under real fiscal constraints. Enrollment has declined over time, costs continue to rise, and prior budgeting issues required correction. Our concern is not that the district is making difficult decisions. Our concern is how those decisions are being made, how they are being explained, and what they mean for the actual functioning of schools. Across the budget documents, there's a structural pattern that raises serious questions about the district's restructuring strategy. The district is reducing assistant principal positions and other school-based leadership capacity at the same time that it is expanding centralized instructional support structures, including instructional facilitators. We recognize that some of these central roles may be instructional in nature and beneficial to teaching and learning. That's not the issue. The issue is organizational function and school capacity. Assistant principals are embedded operational leaders inside our schools. They manage discipline, safety, attendance, compliance, supervision, family communication, and the day-to-day operational demands that allow schools to function. They are physically present in buildings, responding in real time to student and staff needs. Centralized instructional support roles, even when student-facing, are not embedded in the same way. They do not replace that operational leadership function inside schools. This is particularly important because school impacts are not uniform. For example, a loss of one assistant principal in a small, stable school is not operationally equivalent to the loss of one assistant principal in a large high school with high discipline needs, multiple programs, chronic absenteeism, and major compliance burdens. Likewise, a school serving higher need populations may require more leadership and coordination capacity, even during enrollment decline, not less. So the core question this budget raises is not simply whether the district is investing or cutting, it is whether the district is shifting operational capacity away from schools while concentrating instructional and management structures centrally, and whether that shift has been fully explained, justified, and evaluated in terms of real school level impact. At the same time, the impacts of this budget are not evenly distributed. Some schools are receiving additional staffing and investment, while others are losing leadership and support.
That was the 3 minutes, and it cuts off on the Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Ms. Payne, if you are still there and you can hear, you can still send your written testimony to the board as well, and they will see that. We also have Saren O'Grady online. Saren?
I'm here.
All right, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Saren O'Grady, O''Grady. I'm a former MPS student, Milwaukee resident, and business owner. I went to Riverside High School, and Mr. Fonz, you were my junior year social studies teacher. I'm deeply disappointed in this proposed budget, particularly as someone whose values and understandings of the world was greatly shaped by my wonderful teachers at MPS. I'm no spring chicken, but I still remember how hard they worked every day, tirelessly, to provide us with not only the academic foundations, but the tools to go out into the world with, as well as a depth of understanding of the world we would find. That is an incredible task, and one that deserves the utmost respect. And there's one very easy, very straightforward way to show that respect, and that is materially. Deliver the full COLA by July 1st for our teachers. I said I was disappointed, but really I'm appalled, especially with those of you who were once teachers yourselves and who are well acquainted with the very real financial hardship of being a public school teacher. Mr. Fonz, your class had a huge impact on me. You took the words on those history book pages and gave them context and nuance, and encouraged us to challenge the narrative and think for ourselves. You spoke to us about injustice and that we could do something about it, including working with students wanting to speak up about the unjust invasion of Iraq. In the corner of your classroom was an upturned American flag, not out of disrespect, but based in the broken promise of this country for many of its people. You offered a bit of truth for kids, a lot of whom hadn't been respected or considered enough to think engaging them critically was valuable. And I think you should have been paid well for that important work. No teacher should have to worry every day about how they'll pay their mortgage or rent, provide for their kids, or pay back their student loans. Every teacher deserves to be respected and valued materially so they can effectively show up for our kids and live a decent life. Wouldn't you have told us, Mr. Fonz, to demand here today, demand of you, the full COLA for MPS staff? I think so. Thank you.
We have Emily Barsh. Emily, are you online? Emily Barsh? Okay, I don't think we have Emily, and I think I heard that Carrie Moss is in the crowd here. Is Carrie here, or Carrie, are you online? You're here? Okay. Carrie is in the crowd.
All right, I am Carrie Moss, resident of the City of Milwaukee, business owner. My question is regarding the budget for busing. It's some number I've never really heard. I don't know if it's really necessary because Milwaukee is very culturally diverse across the entire city. I feel that it'd be more important to bring back the neighborhood school so these kids can attend the activities before school, after school, and be part of their neighborhood. I find it they shouldn't be sent on a bus across town. They miss out on so much. And then the flip side would be, there's a lot of money involved in busing, gas, safety, maintenance, insurance. I mean, how much is our busing budget? But if a parent wants to send their kid across town, feel free to drive them themselves. I think that would be a huge savings for the City of Milwaukee residents and benefit our communities. And we can't keep our grocery stores open, we can't keep our pharmacies open, but wouldn't it be nice if our neighborhood schools are functioning and creating a better sense of community across the city? And another thought was how many, sorry, I've never done this before. How many bilingual teachers are we having above 5th grade? At that point, shouldn't our kids, if they're US citizens, be fluent in English at that point? So I don't understand why we have a budget for over 5th grade bilingual teachers, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Just to double check, were you able to recover, I think her name was Emily?
I heard that she is not online.
Okay, then we will continue with the in-person speakers. First, I have Sarah Grutner. Please state your name and spell your last name, please.
Sarah Grutner, Gruettner. Director Reza, I would like to start by addressing you and saying thank you. A couple weeks ago, you were the only board member who stood with students and with educators, and we appreciate that. Tonight, I ask, can any of you actually define the word equitable? Can you explain how these across-the-board cuts to student-facing positions is equitable? Medically fragile schools are having CHA hour cuts, para-hour cuts throughout the district. You're letting assistant principals go throughout the district, which is destabilizing environments right now. You are removing trained APs from schools. You're removing language APs from bilingual and immersion schools. You have shown this community, parents, families, and most importantly, the students, that they are nothing but a number on a piece of paper. You don't care about how our school communities work, what our students need, or the acuity of the buildings we work in every single day. Brenda lied to this community, to every person in this room, including every board member here. She has caused chaos and destabilization in this district. It is time to stand with us and demand classrooms over contracts, put our workers back in our buildings, give MPS employees their full cost of living adjustment of 2.63% starting on July 1st for every employee in this district. Brenda and Missy have shown you tonight that they have the money. What they don't have is respect for the employees, students, and communities of MPS. They played in your face, and you fell for it. They lied to you, and you believed it. You have the power to change course, to right the wrongs, and show us that we are valued staff. But more importantly, you have the power tonight to show the students of MPS that you claim to value so much that their well-being and their education is the most important investment that this board will make. Stabilize what Brenda and Missy have brought nothing but chaos and destabilization to. Thank you.
next speaker is Christine Scott. Hi, I'm Christine Scott, SCOTT. I am a school nurse at 2 schools. I'm going to stand here and tell you that you are disrupting one of my schools majorly. By removing our assistant principal, you are taking a person who is a part of a team away from us. You have disrupted our school that we finally, for the first time in my 10 years in the district, have not had multiple daily police contact because of acts of violence between students. Our schools has come down. Because you've disrupted that, you're going to see an increase of police presence in our school, which we don't want. We didn't ask for that. Our team is being disbanded, and it's going to fall apart. Our social worker, her hours got reduced. You don't understand the impact of this. Our students, we work together as a team. You remove one of us, you disperse all of us. And at this point, if I don't get a full cost of living, I don't know if I can afford to come back to MPS next school year. And that hurts me because I love where I'm at. I've asked to be back at my schools every single year because that's where my heart is. I graduated from MPS, my kids graduated from MPS, and I returned back to work for MPS. The last thing I want to do is quit MPS. But when I have to look at my gas tank and know that I can't afford it because I have to choose between filling my tank and filling my fridge, I can't do it. I can't. And that hurts me. I love my students. I love my staff. I go to bat for my staff as they do for me. You're breaking up our team, and I'm asking you to please, you did not look at every single school. You did not. You couldn't have. You couldn't have seen that when I started in 2015, I was seeing over 40 plus kids in my office due to injury due to violence. And as of today, I think I had 1 this whole entire school year. 1. Do you see the significance in that? Because of my team. You're taking my team away from me, and it's breaking my heart. We fought to get the assistant principal into our school. What is my one principal supposed to do with the entire school? Kindergarten through 8th grade. My team reduced our students from having over 6 pregnant teens to none. Come on now. You're gonna break that up? You talk about literacy, you took our library teacher away, our librarian. We get her 1 day a week. What's that supposed to do for literacy? Absolutely nothing. Think about what you're doing first. Think about it.
They don't care.
Next, we'll go to Kyle Tierney.
It's $1. They don't care. They don't care about these children, your children.
All right, my name is Kyle Tierney, Tierney. I'm here as a community member and a resident in Milwaukee. Hello, I'm a teacher in Brown Deer. I'm here today to support my fellow educators, especially those in Milwaukee Public Schools. I fully back the fight for a full cost of living adjustment on July 1st, as well as fully funded schools. Some say that money is the reason for the dismissal for our educators' pay increase. However, it is known that there is around $300 million in contracts to companies that are outside of our schools profiting from them. This money should be put back towards our great educators in MPS. Just like every educator in this room, I know how important it is for our students to have good educators in their classrooms. Without this full COLA on July 1st, educators will struggle to pay for gas, groceries, and rent. How will our educators be able to go and be there for our students every single day? Educators must be able to survive, and our public schools deserve to be fully funded. I stand with the MPS educators and will continue to do so. Full COLA, July 1st. Thank you.
Next is Matt Lind.
My name is Matty Lind, L-I-N-D. I'm a Milwaukee resident, and I'm an educator at one of the Wisconsin Association of Independent Colleges and Universities here in Milwaukee. And I want to first and foremost get it up front. I support a full COLA payment July 1st. No delay in that. These people, these are my neighbors, my brothers, my sisters, people who are putting in time to work with students every single day in difficult situations. And I want to say that the most impressive students that I get the pleasure of working with every day are the ones who come through MPS. They're brilliant because of the teachers, because of the support staff, because of the people who raised them up in this community. And these are the people who are going on to continue our community. And we need to make sure that those who are helping to build this up are fully funded, are not worrying about whether or not they're able to keep their job. Where I work, we deal with budgetary issues as well. And I lost 25% of my team. I now also do 30% more work than I did when that happened, and I get paid the same amount. I'm fortunate enough to not have a lot of debt, but I know so many people who struggle, and actually I had 2 more teammates after that leave because they knew that they might be next and they needed to find something better for them. So this is a shame that we're actually losing people because of these budget cuts, and it's absolutely necessary for us as people who live in Milwaukee, who work with people who go through MPS, who continue to sustain those people so that they can go on to work for jobs or create businesses here in Milwaukee that help continue this very important, healthy, safe, productive cycle that we have of maintaining our fantastic city of Milwaukee. And the thing that I'm hearing from people who actually work in MPS is that y'all aren't taking the whole picture of it. Again, you're looking at numbers, and students are not numbers. These are people with lives. These are people with complexities that you need people who are working with them every single day to understand where they're coming from so that you can actually educate them, so that they can actually learn and thrive. Because whenever they're treated like numbers, they have the chances are much lower. And so please make sure that this funding for the people who are dealing with them every single day, they're getting paid July 1st right away. And it really should be the people who work in these schools who are the ones who are letting you guys know this is what the budget should be. This is how we need to move forward. So I implore you all, don't betray MPS workers. Give them what they deserve just so we can make sure that they stick around and educate those who are going to continue to be new educators in MPS, new educators at other colleges and universities in the area, and keep the society running the way that we need it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carlotta Tyler? Carla Tyler?
Carlotta unfortunately could not be here this evening, so I'll be reading her testimony on her behalf. It's Carlotta, C-A-R-L-O-T-T-A, Tyler, T-Y-L-E-R. She's a math teacher at Transition High School. Transition High School is not failing this district. In fact, we are one of the greatest success stories in alternative education this district has seen in the last decade. Yet, despite our proven results, we are being asked to do more with less. These cuts are not only unfair, they are unjust. For years, Transition High School has consistently graduated more students on average than traditional high schools, while maintaining an extraordinarily low suspension rate of just 0 to 5%. Those outcomes did not happen by accident. They happened because of intentional relationship building, consistency, and a staff that refuses to give up on students that the system overlooks. And yet, the numbers used to justify these cuts fail to tell the full story. Our budget should not be based solely on Third Friday counts because those numbers do not reflect the students we actually serve throughout the year. Transition High School continuously graduates students and enrolls new students in order to meet the needs of as many young people as possible. While other schools may maintain static enrollment, we operate as a revolving door of opportunity for students who need another chance. And let us be honest about who those students are. We serve students dealing with trauma, homelessness, mental health struggles, chronic absenteeism, behavioral challenges, severe credit deficiencies, pregnancy, parenting responsibilities, and incarceration. We serve students many others have given up on, and we do so with dignity, accountability, and care. Alternative schools are expected to absorb the district's most vulnerable and academically struggling students because we are specialists in educating the at-risk child. But specialists cannot perform miracles without resources. You cannot continue sending us the students with the greatest needs while simultaneously stripping away the staffing and support required to serve them effectively. Our success is not measured only in credits and diplomas. Students who came to us disconnected, discouraged, traumatized, and written off found safety, stability, accountability, and belief within our walls. That happened because of our staff. Our staff created an environment where students feel safe, respected, supported. When students feel humanized, their behavior changes, their attendance improves, their academics improve, their future changes. But now our staff has been cut nearly in half. How can we continue to educate the whole child when the very people who make that possible are being removed? Therefore, we are asking this board to take immediate action. We demand that on-site administrative leads and building committees be involved in school-based budget decisions from the very beginning. We demand documented evidence showing that flat enrollment numbers were used for alternative schools like Transition, Groppe, and Project Stay, rather than relying solely on third Friday counts. And we demand that the critical staffing requests made by school leadership be honored, including reversing the proposed cuts to Transition, Groppe, and Project Stay. Transition High School has proven that it's possible what is possible when students are given support, structure, accountability, and care. The question tonight is simple. Will this district continue investing in that success, or will it abandon the very students who need us most? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Devin Schultz.
And that would be me. I am Devin Schultz.
Now you're going to take off the sweatshirt or anything?
Yep, Transition High School, same guy. My name is Devin Schultz, and I teach at Transition High School. I'm the social studies teacher. I'm here tonight to speak about the decision to cut alternative education staff, including at Transition, where we are being reduced from 8 teachers to 4. I'll be honest, this is difficult to understand from where we're sitting. It feels like a decision made without meaningful input from the people working directly with these students every day. And you really have to be inside our building to understand what we do. The students we serve are young people who are not successful in traditional settings. Our program works because it's smaller, it's flexible, and it's relationship-based. Even before these cuts, we were already operating with limited support. We do not have a reading specialist, despite serving many students who are significantly below reading level, or grade level in reading. We only have access to a psychologist 1 day per week. Our transition coordinator serves multiple schools. We do not offer electives. So in summary, we are already doing more with less. I also want to address the way staffing decisions are being made. Whether these cuts were based on third Friday enrollment numbers or on another metric, those numbers do not reflect how alternative schools function. Last year, Transition graduated more than 150 students. Enrollment naturally drops after graduation. Our numbers will never fully rebound by third Friday. When staffing is tied to that single snapshot, student success works against schools like ours. At the same time, demand for our program is increasing, not decreasing. We continue to see more students seeking placement than we can comfortably serve, while also being asked to take additional students based on district-defined criteria that the site staff were not involved in developing. And I'm already seeing the impact in my classroom. I regularly work with 10 to 15 students at a time. That may not sound large in a traditional classroom, but in a competency-based, individualized learning environment, it matters. It directly affects how much support and attention each student receives. Cutting our staff in half will only intensify these problems and weaken the supports that make this program successful. I also want to note that the district video released this afternoon explaining these cuts, there was no mention of alternative education programs. I have never heard any. Instead, the public was told that cuts were being made to positions deemed, quote, not critical to student learning or keeping the district running. I strongly disagree with that characterization. And finally, I am asking that on-site administrative leads and building committees be involved in school-based budget decisions from the beginning, as Carlotta stated. I ask that documented evidence be provided showing that flat enrollment numbers were used for alternative schools, including Transition, Groppe, and Project Stay, rather than third Friday counts. And I'm asking that critical staffing requests made by school leadership be honored, including reversing the proposed cuts to Transition, Groppe, and Project Stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have David Eppelsheimer.
You care, bro. You care.
Mr. True. Dave Eppelsheimer, EPPELSHEIMER. I'm a teacher over at Groppe High School and it's elected MTEA building representative for the past 2 years. I'm here tonight to provide public testimony to the fact that a top-down imposition of this budget will harm secondary education especially. It's also going to hurt our alt-ed schools. And it's going to disrupt the delivery of services for the students and families in our schools that our schools exist to serve. So the unilateral imposition of this budget at the school level led to vast, unreasonable, and unnecessary cuts in all high school. I hope the board understands this. And the fact is that those critical needs requests made in February, March, and April were disregarded in a fashion that only intensifies a pervasive lack of equity in our school district. In order to stabilize and deliver quality services with growing enrollment throughout the school year, our administrative leads and building committees at Groppe, Project Stay, and Transition have demanded expanded staffing. It was a gut punch to the entire school community that we would be forced next year to deliver services with even fewer staff. We all had cuts, including our international teacher was cut with no job. She's applying right now. Nice. They don't. The rumored plan, in fact, to push students into alt-ed sites who are younger than the statutory minimum of age 16 is unacceptable and fantastical. It doesn't matter if you have the best of intentions if you haven't bothered considering the consequences of your actions. And, so the thing is that when our district fails to incorporate the expertise of on-site staff in budgeting for the next school year, it leads to inefficiency and redundancy. So what it seemed like to me is that the thing that was copy-pasted was third Friday enrollment from 2025 onto the budget projections for next year, or enrollment projections. That's what was copy-pasted. Anyway, when our school district fails to incorporate the expertise of on-site staff in budgeting for the next school year, we are going to have inefficiency and redundancy, and we're going to have institutional paralysis as well. And again, I'm going to deliver to these demands, all right? Proactively involve on-site administrative leads and MTEA building committees in the school-based budget process from the beginning to the end. Honor all critical needs requests for alt-ed sites made by administrative leads in 2026. Reverse both the blind cuts to administrative staff and staff excesses in Groppe, Project Stay, and Transition High School. Academic superintendents must provide documented evidence to the board and MTEA that a flat enrollment number of 200 or 250 was used for Groppe, Transition, and Project Stay during February and March of 2026, and not 2025 third Friday enrollment numbers as it appears to be abundantly clear was the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Emma Phillips.
Good evening. My name is Emma Phillips, PHILLIPS. I am a community member. Just want to start off by, hopefully this isn't distracting. I have some temporary tattoos because it was a student incentive day and they got to tattoo a teacher, which is really cool. So I am a UWM student. I am going for education, special education, and next week I will be an official educator, which is really exciting. Thank you. Over the last 4 years at UW-Milwaukee, I've had my heart set on being an MPS educator. There's so much to love about the district and the schools. I've worked with so many mentors, learned from them, and truly found out what it takes to be an effective educator, to work with students and be a student advocate. That's kind of what special education is all about, and just teaching in general, being an advocate. So today I'm here for the students in MPS, the educators, the community. A full COLA by July 1st is what we need. Non-negotiable, truly. The cost of living is going up. I mean, the amount of people that are talking about just needing to fill up their gas, getting groceries, the cost of living is just it's insane. And so just the 2.63% increase is the bare minimum, truly.
That's right.
And just asking you guys to think about the students, think about the educators, just think about the community, because, I mean, that's your job, so thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lucas Weir.
Way to end it, that's your job to do that.
I thought I saw Lucas Weir.
Go ahead, bro, we got you. Let them know.
Lucas Weir, W-I-E-R-E-R. Good evening, Superintendent Cassellius, members of the board. I would like to start by saying I submitted 21 questions related to attachment 4 about the central office budget. I appreciate the directors who responded and look forward to hearing some of the those answered for the public to hear when I go back and listen later. Having said that, I didn't plan to speak about our alternative schools, but I really appreciated the testimony from all 3 individuals who just spoke to give a little clarity to that with the budget in front of me. Those 3 schools in the 2026 budget had $7 million, and then there are $2 million in cuts this year. So these were not minor cuts to an essential service for our students. These were deep cuts, and I think a lot of teachers could agree that many of our students who struggle in a traditional setting, we need more of these types of services and not cutting into already existing services that are there. So I just wanted to take a second to speak to that. I will shorten my other comments. I wanted to speak briefly about the addition of teachers and paras. I don't think any educator in MPS would be opposed to adding positions. I think the concern is it's believed to be unrealistic that we can fill those positions. I was here a year ago and I literally gave this exact same testimony when we said we would actively recruit for chronic vacancies, and we still have vacancies. So we're adding more. Now, what I don't want to do is throw this away. We want smaller class sizes. We want more people in our buildings, but we need to know more about this plan to address the vacancies. Like, you can't just want it. You have to have something in place to actually do this. Otherwise, it continues to be exactly what it's been, which is when a teacher is out, a para fills in. And then the para is out of their classroom and someone else has to pick up the slack. So every single time you have a vacancy in our school, and we're talking hundreds in some cases, it impacts every single person and they have to take on more responsibilities. So what I'm suggesting is maybe we pump the brakes just a little bit on adding positions until we're ensured that we can fill the existing ones, and then consider some of the positions that are being cut. Again, to me, unacceptable. We're losing, I forget how many positions, but there's only 6 positions left in BLMA, restorative practices, gender identity, and inclusion. Like, these are deep cuts to badly needed areas. I'll cover there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Joshua Taylor.
Joshua Taylor, Taylor, T-A-Y-L-O-R. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. What's up, everyone? I'm going to start off right off the bat. I'm against this budget because it's a part of a false reality that's being created by this administration, namely the superintendent and the president of the board over there. They've tried to create this reality, like they're really trying to sell us, is that there's no money, that there's nothing that they can do, that is just common sense, that we as educators and students just have to suffer the pain of cuts and austerity. And even worse, in this fabricated reality is actually you guys are the ones acting as the victims. We should still feel sorry for you because you have to have the hard job of continuing to facilitate tens of millions of dollars going to outside vendors like companies and consultants. And some of you try to sell us on this while having $200,000 plus jobs. That's just the way it is in a cold capitalist reality. But so I guess we're just going to accept it. But I ask everyone here, are we just going to accept that? No, we're not. We're going to stand all 10 toes down on a full cost of living adjustment for July 1st. And we're not going to get over it because the cost of gas, groceries, and supplies are getting over on us. We can't get over it because we need to retain educators so that our students have a quality learning environment that they deserve. And we're not going to get over it also because we don't play around with union busting. That's clear as day what's happening. And something that I want to highlight for this fight that is beyond just the economic fight. It's much deeper than that. It's about who controls our public institutions and who they benefit, us or private corporate interests looking to profit from the public good. And I want to say to the community, this is a test for all of us as they're sizing us up right now, not just us as workers, but the rest of the public. They're trying to see what we will accept and what they can force us to accept. But we're going to reach out to all of our people, as we already have done, as you guys are seeing here, and we're going to organize. Just like we made you backtrack on cutting the hours for the paras and the CHAs, we're going to backtrack on the full cost of living. It's going to be July 1st. Because I want to let everybody know, when we fight, we win. Everybody, when we fight, what happens? When we fight, we win. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elise Che. Elise Che.
Hi, my name is Elise Che, it's spelled C-H-A-Y. I'm a parent and an alum and a community member. I think it's important that we don't forget that this would be the second major layoff in a row. That's all we've really had offered to us. I also want to share with you an experience that I had with the superintendent that has caused me to not trust what she says. 6 months ago, the superintendent entered a meeting of the steering committee of an ongoing multi-year community input process for long-range facilities master plan. More than 100 people had dedicated dozens of hours, mostly during dinner time, to learning about a very complicated array of data, and were asked to make heartbreaking choices in deprioritizing things that are key to the quality of our students' lives. In the middle of this process, she shut down the process with no explanation. She was not just disrespectful of the extensive commitment that families of students and community members made. She responded to concerns and questions with a flippant attitude that showed that she did not respect those of us in the room and made it clear that she thought she was still in Boston. She does not understand Milwaukee, and she doesn't care about our kids. It's okay to be afraid when we learn about a huge deficit. It's something that none of us can ignore. But the administration is offering a concept of a plan and thinks that they're going to be able to hire additional teachers. If you live in Milwaukee, if you've paid attention to how MPS has been operating and the challenges that MPS continues to have, you know that doesn't make any sense. That's not reality. That's impossible. So what you're actually being asked to endorse is a situation in which we trade the MPS staff that care about our students for nothing.
Next, we have Lindsay Hill.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Hill, Hill. I'm a community member and a Milwaukee resident. I have been an educator on both the teacher and the staff side of things in K through 12, higher ed, and adult settings for over a decade. I stand with MPS educators. I fully support the full COLA on July 1st. I have not worked in MPS schools, but I understand the important role that educators play both in our schools and in our community. Throughout my career, I have witnessed the dedication of teachers and staff, including myself, beyond our capacity and contracted hours, all the success of students in and outside the classroom. We as educators are not only teaching or supporting students in their academic needs, we're also operating as pseudo-parents, mentors, social workers, community liaisons, and more, you name it, we're doing it. Educators are not paid for this additional work, but the nature of their role in our schools and communities demands it of them because they are a central pillar in our communities. That is especially true in the Milwaukee community, a very diverse community. Yet most of the educators I have known, again, including myself, have had 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I can imagine that this is the case for most, if not all, MPS educators. I can tell you from firsthand experience, our communal well-being is directly impacted by the well-being of our educators, and that when educators are burnt out and struggling, this has a domino effect on the students, their parents, and the community itself. This is why it is your duty to approve the full 2.63% cost of living adjustment now. This is the bare minimum that we should be investing in our educators to ensure the health of our community as a whole. And people are struggling, if our educators are struggling, we are all struggling. And people are struggling more and more with the rising costs of basic necessities like gas, groceries, rent, utilities, and more. No educator should have to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet, most especially because of all the work they do during and outside of contracted hours. And MPS educators cannot wait for a staggered plan. Gas is almost $5 right now. Okay? They have real needs now, and so do MPS students, so do MPS parents, and so does the community. I have a stake in this not because I'm an MPS educator, not because I'm an MPS parent, but because I am a community member. Not only do I want my community to thrive, but I thrive when the backbones of our communities, our educators, thrive. So anything less than the full COLA now by July 1st is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nancy Taylor.
Taylor, and I am one of the teachers that is being accessed from Transition High School. I am the only English teacher, and I have a master's degree in reading intervention. When students come to us, they have to have a 4.5 reading level, and there are a lot of them that are reading way lower than that. I have built a program using some computer software and other videos to support them, and they keep going back to central office to get tested again. Recently, I had a student that I've had all year. She scored a 5.8, and that was not because of me, it was because she worked and worked and worked. Now, if I'm accessed, who's gonna take care of these kids? I get kids that don't know the letters of the alphabet, they're dyslexic, you name it, I get that. I just can't believe that this is happening. And I have a nice little speech because I teach English, but this does not make sense. And I'm not a numbers person. I hate balancing the checkbook. But let me give you 2 examples where a teacher was seriously needed. Well, maybe only one. I had a student once that had my home phone number because she needed support. She called me one night over Christmas break at 11:30 at night. She wanted to tell me that she felt like self-harming. It's Christmas. Where is everybody? I was able to contact the school and we got her help. We still see each other on Facebook and whatnot to this day. I've had students come to me because they can't go to their parents and confide that they're gay. So what? I just can't imagine not being there for the kids. Today, at the end of the day, I had a student that she needs a lot of work to get her writing good. And so we were looking at some strategies and whatnot. And inside me, I started to cry because I was like, who is going to take care of these kids if I'm gone? And again, I said I was an educator, reading English social studies, and I'm being accessed with 28 years of teaching.
Look up the word shame when y'all laugh.
Next, we'll have Alex Underwood.
These are adults making these decisions.
Thank you.
Be ashamed of yourselves, all of you.
Hi there, my name is Alex Underwood, Underwood. I'm a community member. I'm also a member of the Milwaukee chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm here today to express my support for a full cost of living adjustment for Milwaukee MPS educators on July 1st. As of right now, this adjustment is already insufficient to cover the rising costs that our educators are facing, and that will only be exacerbated if part of that adjustment is deferred until next January. We think gas prices and food prices are high now. How high will they be in another 6 months? I speak for everyone here, I'm sure, when I say that I would not be where I am without the public school teachers who helped me navigate my education. Without teachers who give their talent and energy, we can't have engineers, we can't have doctors, we can't have the people who make our society run. But that's not the only reason I'm here. Because I may not be an educator myself, but I am a worker. I know what it's like to be told that we need to wait for a better time to advocate for ourselves. I know what it's like to be told that resources don't exist while higher-ups and contractors line their pockets. This fight is a microcosm of all workers' struggles. And when we stand together, we have an opportunity to create a better world and lift up the workers who build this society and not just the wealthy who exploit it. The problem here is not that the resources do not exist, it is that the workers and the educators and the teachers are not being prioritized. Hundreds of millions go to contractors while our educators get left behind and their students with them. These directors here, you have the choice. By giving our educators your full support now, you could signal that you stand with the workers that make this district and this city run over the companies that profit off of our public institutions. The choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Al Mitchell.
Hello, my name is L. Mitchell, Mitchell. I am a lifelong MPS student who then went on to get a master's degree in education. I am, in every sense, a Milwaukee Public Schools success story. And I don't say that to boast, I say that only to say that it sounds like there's going to be fewer, of me in the future now, unless you approve the full cost of living adjustment on July 1st. And that is the bare minimum of what needs to happen. I had the privilege to go to one of the best MPS schools, to work with some of the most amazing educators. I've seen lives transformed. I have had my own life transformed. And that cannot be done by people who are living on nothing. And the way that costs are going up, people are going to be running on fumes. They are running on fumes already in so many ways. And it's not just educators, it's staff members, it's everybody. Every single person is essential in that school building. And I know at one point everybody up here knew that. And hopefully you remember it. And I'm going to ask you one time, are you educators or are you not? And if you are educators, you understand what you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaliyah Ashley Brantley.
You win this fight or not, it's as simple as that.
Hello, my name is Aaliyah Brantley, and I'm an MPS alumni, and I believe our educators are not paid high enough. How will our educators successfully teach the children of tomorrow how to be functioning adults if in society if they cannot even pay for basic living expenses themselves? How will they teach our children if they have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to stay afloat? Why should they stay if there's no incentive to help the children and families of Milwaukee, especially if they find a higher paying job in another district or another field? They deserve to know that they can put food on the table and nourish the children with education and a chance to learn skills to benefit themselves, their families, and their communities. Give educators the modest 2.63% COLA they are asking for July 1st. Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Pennis or Perez? Okay, Penner.
Jeez. That's a throwback to how I get made fun of in middle school. Lord. Yeah, my name is Robert Penner, Penner. I am a member of AFT Local 3535. I am a teaching assistant over at UW Milwaukee. And as a teaching assistant of a class of 120 kids, I have to sit through a lot of questionable presentations. And I didn't expect to come in here today and sit through yet another questionable presentation. There's this great book that I teach called How to Lie with Charts, and that was basically the entire what was said and done with the presentation that was put before us. In the pie chart that was presented, oh man, you can lie with pie charts so easily. What they did is they didn't show the breakdown on the pie chart between how much the administrators get paid and how much front-facing teachers get paid. They just say, oh, well, it's 70% staff costs. Totally, completely misleading and reprehensible. Another thing that was very conveniently just brushed over like it was nothing was any kind of real justification for the split up of the COLA between July and January. It was kind of whisked over like it didn't even matter, even though most of us are here to talk about specifically that. There was no justification given, budgetarily or otherwise, as to why the COLA needs to be split up between July and January. It just was not given. And I had prepared remarks, but I mean, it was just, it's atrocious. So I can see bullshit in a presentation from a mile away. And like I said last time
We're
in here.
on live radio, so you can't cuss. We'll get in trouble for that.
Oh.
Thanks.
Oh, that's all right. No, I apologize to the radio listeners. No, thank you, Director. I appreciate that. So it stinks. And I said when I came in here last time that this whole thing stinks. $300 million in outside contracts, and you can't give the very modest 2.63% COLA on July 1st to the teachers is ridiculous. And frankly, it's just not the direction that this school system needs to be going in. The teachers need to be paid, And I don't know how you expect to increase staffing and hire more teachers if there is, a record, on record, of the COLA being denied or spread out or split up and wages not meeting just the very basics of keeping up with inflation. You're probably not aware because of your very healthy six-figure salaries, but there is a cost of living crisis in this country, not just in Milwaukee, not just among teachers, but among all workers there is a cost of living crisis. And the fact that this is just being kind of whisked over and ignored the way that you're ignoring it, and the side eye that I'm getting from Aichasawa over there as I make my points, I think that's
Please
just kind
direct
of
comments
rude
to
and
the chair.
ridiculous, so.
Thank you. I read it at the beginning, but I'll read it again. As many of you are aware, the district is currently a party to a pending proceeding before the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission concerning the district's collective bargaining with the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. That proceeding is active and a hearing before work is scheduled for next week. Because that proceeding is active, it would be improper for board members or district administration to engage substantively in a public forum on the matters that are before work. These matters include the timing of the base wage increase, the district's bargaining proposals, MTEA's bargaining proposals, the April 28 board resolution on impasse, the merits of either party's position in the work proceeding. Members of the public are absolutely welcome to address those subjects in their public comments if they choose, and we will hear them. We will simply not be in a position to respond, and I'm telling you that again, so it doesn't feel dismissive when it occurs. Next, we have Amanda, and I'm sorry, Sepinen.
Why we're here because you've been dismissed. What are you talking about?
Dismissive during the entire bargaining process.
Right. She's absolutely right. Talking about? What, you gonna lie to us? To our face? Go ahead, sis. You waiting?
All right, Amanda Sepinen, last name Seppanen. I did see some of you at the town hall, so I'll apologize in advance if you've heard some of this twice. I am a graduate of Milwaukee Public Schools, and so I do want to acknowledge all the teachers in the room, because a big part of why I became an educator myself was because of my experience in MPS. And I know I had teachers who stood in really important places for me when the adults in my life who should have been there could not do that. So all the people sitting in the room, there are so many stories of what they do that they will never know, that you will never know, and that really needs to be acknowledged. I'm here today as a parent of a student at Fratney. You may see a lonely 7-year-old sitting in the back of this room. Has some experience hanging out in central office auditorium. He would rather be on a playground, and I'd rather be there with him. But I continue to say the same things in hopes that it might make a difference. The process of this budget has been deeply troubling to me. And so I have said from the beginning, I went to the community sessions. My first red flag was the fact that the widespread staffing cuts were announced less than 48 hours after those community sessions concluded. As a board, I would think that one of your first red flags was that this proposal came out on a Friday afternoon and you were told you had to vote on it on Monday, or the world was going to crash down around you. There was no other way to balance the budget and to deal with the deficit. And part of what we're finding out now is that, in fact, we didn't need to cut all of these people because of the deficit, but rather we wanted to use the money to fund 150 new teaching positions that we may or may not be able to fill. And so I wish the district didn't have a chronic vacancy problem, but we do, and we've had that for years. And a lot of the trade-offs, they're not affecting schools equally, as you've heard here today. And a simple way to avoid that would have been to engage the principals and the school level teams. They could have told you exactly what these cuts meant. My son goes to La Escuela Fratney. He has a great principal who could explain fully what we need at that school and what we don't need. the first drafts of the budgets that came through gave extra teaching positions just because the counts were 1 or 2 students over what was typical. And so it's important for you to engage people, but also to think about it just with your own common sense. What schools do you think have APs right now with nothing to do? Where are the APs with no work? We can do better than this.
Thank you. Next, we have Joshua Joseph.
Hi, good evening. Josh Joseph, last name Joseph. I am the current IBDP coordinator at Rufus King High School. And I am one of the many coordinators who were cut across the district on March 9th. At that time, the superintendent stated that no one knew what IB coordinators really did and that the work could be done by teachers or paraprofessionals as an added duty or extra prep. This just isn't possible at any of the schools in MPS that offer IB programs. And it's troubling that this administration, with board approval, was so quick to cut positions without even knowing what they were cutting. IB coordinators have many responsibilities in their schools, including serving as the main contact with the IB organization, managing IB documentation, overseeing the 5-year evaluations that happen every 5 years, support teachers in developing, implementing, and assessing during the IB curriculum, and organizing professional development opportunities for staff. We also advise and counsel students, support students in making progress, and monitor and analyze student performance and exam results to identify areas for improvement. The superintendent has stated the IB coordinator positions are being reinstated in the budget, and I appreciated seeing it in the budget summary sent out on May 4th. However, no real details have yet been shared with the schools or the MTA. This uncertainty is an unnecessary amount of stress at an already stressful time of the school year. Milwaukee Public Schools now has over a dozen schools offering IB programs from elementary school through high school. We are part of a network of IB schools across the world, and it's time that everyone learns about IB and the ways these programs benefit our schools, our students, and our city. MPS must dedicate funding that ensures every single one of its IB schools has its own coordinator and resources to carry out the work needed to ensure continued accreditation. I'm asking the board to ensure this position is included in the budget and that information be clearly communicated to school principals, staff, and the MTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ingrid Walker-Henry.
Ingrid Walker-Henry, Walker-Henry. 2 months ago, on March 9th, the administration brought an item to approve steps and lane increases for eligible staff to the board. MTEA testified that for the past 8 years, administration has engaged in meet and confer with the MTEA on salary schedules. The administration had made no attempt to meet and confer with MTEA on salary schedules for 26-27 before posting to the March 9th agenda. The March 9th board item estimated the cost for steps and lanes at $10.4 million. MTEA is not in agreement on the total cost to advance eligible workers on the salary schedule. MTEA's calculations put the cost of this item at approximately $7.6 million. MTEA does not see that MPS has factored in regular end-of-the-year staff turnover due to resignations and retirements and shared 24-25 data showing that annual staff turnover negates the vast majority of the cost for steps and lane movement, pegging the actual cost between $1 to $2 million. The board passed a motion directing the administration to meet and confer with bargaining units on steps and lanes. A month ago, on April 7th, MTEA met and conferred with administration on steps and lane increases. We began our discussion with the March 9th board item that the superintendent brought to you for approval. MPS indicated that the district's intent for steps and lanes is for typical vertical and horizontal movement as it has been historically. At the conclusion of this session, it was noted that both parties had shared agreement and understanding on this matter, yet the superintendent would not confirm that we had agreement. MTA is charged with the responsibility of ensuring the wage scales are being implemented with fidelity for over 5,700 workers who have been worried and anxiously waiting for the matter to be settled. On behalf of over 5,700 MTA members, I am asking the superintendent to confirm here tonight that MPS and MTEA have an agreement on the salary schedules that were met and conferred over on April 7th for the 2026-27 school year.
Next, we have Luz Hernandez.
Good evening. I'm Luz Hernandez. I am actually reading Dr. Jim Nelson's testimony, NEL, SEN. He is a high school teacher at Golda Meir. Dear Board of School Directors, the superintendent has said for months that we have a $46 million deficit. MTA's response was to tell her to cut contracted services by tens of millions of dollars. She repeatedly said she could only cut contracted services by $5 to $10 million, and therefore could not offer a full 2.63% COLA to employees. Last week, you, the school board, imposed the Diet Cola. Then, miraculously, the superintendent announced on Monday that she had found $46 million in contract cuts. The actual budget says $38.3 million. Either way, the money is now available for the full COLA. Instead, the superintendent proposes adding 150 teaching positions that you know will never be filled. My rough estimate is that those positions will cost $10 to $15 million, well beyond the money needed for the full COLA. My proposal is simple. Meet us halfway. Let the superintendent try to expand the teaching force by 75 teachers instead of 150. You would save at least $5 million that way. You could pay everyone the full COLA and have money left over to look at other compensation issues, such as longevity bonuses, increasing stipends for national board certification, frozen for more than a decade, or implementing stipends for hard-to-find teaching certifications or hard-to-staff schools. Everyone would win if you just meet us halfway in expanding the teaching force by 75 teachers instead of 150.
Next, we have Michael Glaber. Glaber, sorry.
Mike Glaber, Glabere. I'm a special ed paraprofessional at Burbank. First things first, I would like you to amend this budget to have a full COLA on July 1st. Now, I would like to address your fiduciary responsibility to have a good budget and suggest that you take control over the contracting you do. Currently, procurement under $50,000, you barely see. That's a lot of contracts. Many contractors will put in multiple bids for multiple contracts of $49,950, taking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars out of this district. You don't have oversight. You've given that to administration. You also have a thing called continuity of service. Once they're doing a good job, they just keep doing a good job. You also don't look at that. You need to be good fiduciary agents for our district. Take control over the contracting. Take a look at how many agencies are filling temporary jobs for the vacant positions in our district and how much money they're making doing that. Are you going to approve a budget to create more vacancies, to give more money to temp agencies? I don't think that's what you want to do. So, full COLA, be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Andrew Wenheim.
My name is Andrew Wehrheim, Wehrheim. I am a concerned citizen. I'm also the Education and Organizing Coordinator for Milwaukee Area Labor Council. We all know that Act 10 was an injury and a wound that crippled the rights of our public school teachers. And everyone realizes that you, the superintendent, and the school board, you can't heal the Act 10 injury and the wound. You don't have the power or resources to do that. But you do have a choice about how you allocate the resources that you have. You have the chance to put a Band-Aid on the wound, a simple Band-Aid. You have the opportunity to at least address the wound. And you do this by granting a full 2.63% COLA on July 1st. But instead of a Band-Aid, you're throwing salt into the wound. You're adding insult to injury. And no matter how much you say you respect your teachers, your actions are telling a different story. Injury to insult, salt in the wound. Do the right thing, grant a 2.63% full COLA by July 1st, on July 1st. And I want to say that I'm proud to be here standing in solidarity with MTEA. And my question is, which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Thank you. Next, we have Elizabeth Kosmak.
Hi, Elizabeth Kosmak, Kosmach. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all our frontline educators. I'm here to speak on the Alternative Education High School Program funding. Each board director has an email specifically detailing what current budget means to Project Stay, and I'm speaking on behalf of Project Stay, and other alternative high schools, asking the board to restore funding that allows students the same access as their peers, rather for their necessary learning environment. While the district claims to be adding 300 support and teaching positions, actually 331 on Cycle B, Project Stay and other alternative high schools serving the most vulnerable students are seeing a net loss. This statement about reducing class sizes and increasing support does not match with the cuts of their staff. Removing an entire pair of professionals from Project Stay, they're all gone. You accessed them all. While claiming that you're adding 138 positions district-wide is fundamentally mismatch that levels our students behind. Applying a rigid snapshot to a program designed for flexibility is a policy mismatches that penalizes students for a very life circumstances that brought them to Project Stay and other alternative high schools. Serving students transitioning back into the system or seeking pathways that traditional schedules cannot accommodate. If the district is to meet standard of care, the standard must account for the fluid reality of alternative education. While 1:30 teacher to student ratio may be proposed standard for traditional environments, it is ineffective and ignores the specific needs of our students. If the district's goal is to give students more one-on-one attention, then our at-risk population, many of who are deficit in core skills, should be allowed smaller class sizes than the traditional standard. This needs for smaller ratios is aligned recommendations from DPI and various national dropout prevention organizations. The proposed budget changes imposed on alternative high schools endangers graduation program rates for at-risk students. In a small community, success relies on all hands on deck. The cuts that remove all paraprofessionals from our schools is not all hands on deck. It leads to staff burnout. It means losing critical classroom interventions for high need students and compromising daily safety protocols like entrance and phone collection and serving vital mentorship and connections for our students. In addition, staff have been cut from other schools and provided mandatory graduation requirement courses. Support staff like social workers have been reduced as well. The increasing mental health and stability needs
wrap up your
for our students population. Equity is giving students what they need to succeed. It's not giving the students everything the same. Project Stay and alternative high schools need more equity. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Ellen O'Grady.
Don't cover all. She had more to say.
Miss O'Grady is just coming to the stage. Thank you.
Ellen O'Grady, O''G', I am a former paraprofessional. I'm a community member. I'm the proud parent of actually a student who called in at the very beginning of this meeting. I didn't expect to talk today, but I was moved to talk. She's calling from New York. She's calling from 1,000 miles away to an MPS board meeting. I want to ask you, who do you think we're raising here? Who do you think these incredible people are educating? We're educating future citizens of this country.
Thank you. Next, we have Jay Ware.
It's about the kids, it ain't about you. It never was about you, it's about these kids.
And then after Jay, we'll have Evan Stevens.
Hello. My name is Jay Ware, W-A-R-E. I am representing myself as a concerned citizen. However, I am a fourth grade teacher in a local adjacent district. I'm a little disappointed with this budget, as well as I've heard lots of people say, specifically with the delayed delivery of the full COLA to your workers. Day to day at school, as every single one of you knows, because every single one of you has been in a classroom, probably this week because it's Teacher Appreciation Week and you're popping by to say hi. You know that these kids need consistent adults. That's something you always tell us. That's why teachers sometimes brave sicknesses and family difficulties to make sure that they're there for their students. Students trust, rely, and ask for their adults at your schools when they can't be there. I have students that try to elope because their favorite adult isn't in the building. They're like, oh, Mr. T isn't here, I'm out. We as educators know that without the basic needs, emotional and physical, being met, humans don't learn. Their brain is occupied, it's preoccupied, and a lot of us know that some of that stuff is stuff that we couldn't even handle, that these kids are handling every day, and they want their adults there to help them feel safe. It's the day-to-day labor of these many workers that you have that makes this safety and this trust happen. Not providing the full COLA is asking workers to meet these needs, these students' needs, without helping them have the means to meet their own. That is basic psychology. Every single one of us who is an educator has had to take Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's the first basic rung. If I have to choose between eating healthy and getting gas and paying rent, and I am suffering, I cannot deliver that safety and that trust and that love to the students that they need and that they deserve. I know as a partner of a paraprofessional, he is currently working to be a SPED teacher. He's a SPED paraprofessional. A 3-day weekend can make or break his ability to help me buy healthy groceries for our house. Providing the full COLA is the easiest way to boost and maintain the well-being of your schools, because that well-being lies within the well-being of your workers. I know that you guys are paid to deliver bad news, and you come off as the bad guys because of it. You work hard. My superintendent gets 4 hours of sleep a night. I know, because I can text her at 2, and she's probably answering. But you don't have to betray your workers.
Right.
Thank you. And then Mr. Evans Stevens.
Good evening, everyone. Evans L. Stevens, S-T-E-P-H-E-N-S, longtime district employee, 1970. I am very disappointed. There's nothing so unequal as is the unequal treatment of the unequal. Come along with me. You say you love us. You say we are important to the district, but how do you treat us? You hit us with a backhand and a club upside the head, because people who have worked in this district for a long time, who have worked and put in their time to get in AP positions, and all of a sudden, now you come in and you say, I'm cutting AP positions. You got to go back to the classrooms and you've got to start all over again. And people who have started in the last 2 or 3 years have more seniority than you do, and you've been in there for 20 years. How is that fair? How is that fair? I guess that goes back to when Jesus was in the vineyard. He said, hey, I will pay you. Don't worry about it. I will pay you the labor. Well, we are dependent upon you to pay us for the work we do. And then you tell them they got to go back into the portal and find a job. They had a job, but at the end of this year, they got to go back into the portal and find a place to work. And on the portal, you only have elementary position for the most part. If you check it, very few high school. And if it's a math position and one of the other 2 things, special ed. I thought we were better than that. I thought we were better than that. MPS, wake up. Think about what you're doing to families. When they're at this salary and now they drop down, what if I invited you to go with me on a plane ride? And after we get to a certain altitude, I tell you, I'm bailing out. And I leave you there to make it the best way you can. For the alternative schools, these are special students, and it has to be special people to work with them. Their funding does not need to be cut. Please restore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And then finally, we have John Fleisner.
Hello, I'm John Fleisner. I serve on the executive board of MTEA, as well as the executive board of Voces de la Frontera. I'm a teacher at Hamilton, but I'm going to read a statement for somebody else tonight. My name is Paige Bowski, and I'm an art teacher at Riverside University High School. I am so beaten down after this year. We have gone through 2 floods which affected all 3 of our art rooms in the basement, with a total of 11 staff members affected. We have not received any materials back from either flood, have been displaced twice, and our third art teacher is being cut. The 2 art teachers left are expected to pick up the classes that all 3 art teachers had. Not only have we put countless hours into the disasters that have happened this school year, but we have to spend unpaid time to remove flooded materials after the second flood because of the incompetence of central office. These conditions have affected hundreds of students who deserve the absolute best. All of this could have been avoided if the school board didn't blindly vote to cut teachers when they didn't know who was being cut. I was told our art teacher being cut was the least disruptive to the school. The disrespect I have experienced this school year is unacceptable. And now we are being disrespected because the school board will not give us the full 2.63 COLA on July 1st. If the school board had any respect for the workers and students in this district, then they would give us the full COLA. Professions who need an appreciation week are already underpaid. Thank you. So, and I want to say that, like, we've seen that the money for the COLA is there. The superintendent is trying to make a political point out of this, that she can kick a worker in the head and get away with it. She's made chaotic and haphazard decisions, and the board has been manipulated to become a rubber stamp. But you don't have to be a rubber stamp. You have one more opportunity to do the right thing and be remembered as people who stood up for what was right. Or you can go down into retirement or whatever you have next, your next thing, and be remembered as people who betrayed the working class of Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now we'll go to committee members. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Do we want to start? I see Director Vinoy nodding. So while we have some maybe people who might have answers filing in. Director Vinoy, do you want to start with your questions, please?
Sure, thank you. So today I had a lot of phone calls with some alternative education teachers. And it's interesting because what we're hearing here and what we've heard, and the lady we met being cut, when I asked what the ratios were for the alt ed schools, I've heard 1-8, 1-11, 1-14 for the 3 schools. The teacher I talked to today said, looking at her roster for next year, she's got 29 in one of her classes, and other classes more. There's no paras to help support. And there's 80 people on the waiting list for Project Stay, yet we're cutting teachers. So I need to know, like, where the disconnect is in all of that information.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Vinoy, I know that our high school superintendents have been working with the principals at those schools to look at their staffing and the students in the program model. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Shapiro to speak to the work that they've been doing around that.
Thank you. Chair O'Halloran, Director Vinoy, Aaron Shapiro, Academic Superintendent. So a little bit about the alternative school budgeting process from a historical perspective to today. Historically, all of our alternative schools had been staffed with a projected or a total enrollment count of around 250 students. And why it was at 250 was that represented the total number under the law that an alternative school could have. Historically, the schools had not reached that 250 count. So as we transitioned to the centralized budgeting process, all of our alternative schools were staffed using the same standard of care modeling of the 30-to-1 ratio. What makes our alternative schools a little bit different, though, is that the majority of the students who attend Project Stay, Transition, and GRAPI participate in what would be a half-day program. So half the school attends in the morning, roughly half the school attends in the afternoon. So when we look at the Project Stay budget, they were projected at 161 students for fall. The projections were done with the similar metrics that were done for all of our schools. So at 161, the school was staffed with 6.2 FTEs of teachers. Because they're only serving half the population at a time, the approximate class size would be 12.9. When we look at Groppe High School, Groppe had been projected at 156 students. They had an FTE count coming in for fall at 6.6. That would give us an approximate class size of 11.2. When we look at Transition High School, they were projected at 98 students, which equated to 4 FTEs. Because those students are on partial day schedules, the average class size would be 12. I have been in frequent contact with all of our alternative school leaders. As students continue to add in for fall, and we start to see cases where those class sizes begin to rise, it's not only the intent at all of our alternative schools, but any school that would be in a situation where additional staffing is needed to meet that standard of care, additional resources would be associated with those buildings.
Thank you. Director Vanoy, do you have follow-up?
Yep. So, for example, in the woman I talked to earlier today, and what we've heard here today, what about like reading supports, literacy supports? We're down to 1 English teacher at Project Stay, and I just can't see that happening.
Sorry. Director O'Halloran, Director Vanoy, certainly we want to make sure that those additional supports around proficiencies are in place. Each one of our alternative schools did qualify as either ATSI, CSI, or MRI, and so they will be getting one of those instructional facilitator teachers, as well as to support. And keep in mind as well that more and more of our students who are participating in programming at our alternative schools are participating in what are the alternative programs. And so a lot more of our students are either doing the GED option 2 in those spaces or participating in the competency program.
Yep.
What are we doing to
I taught
I think-
6 different classes at one time. At one time.
Okay.
Okay, what do we do, like, for example, like a comp teacher who has all of their students at once? And also, I know that there are some students who are also full day. So if a teacher has like somebody in the morning, but then they also have somebody, in the afternoon, but are we gonna, like, all of the pairs are gone, so are they gonna have additional supports put back in?
So, Director O'Halloran, Director Vanoy, again, with any sort of changes that we might be seeing in regards to that overall class size, we certainly would want to put the personnel necessary to best support those students. And you and I have worked quite closely on a couple of alternative items thus far. As we see what those enrollments look like for fall and see what those students truly do need, I know we've even talked about things beyond like academic supports, more about social emotional pieces, restorative pieces that might be needed. I trust in the process that we're going to be able to provide those schools what they need for the students that they serve.
With what staff?
Thank you, Director Vanoy. I'm going to move on, if that's okay. I see Director Ferguson has his hand raised.
Thank you. I wanted to, who are you calling? I'm sorry.
Director Ferguson had his hand raised. I'm sorry, the way that the script was, we were just going around. But if you feel some type of way, we could go to Director Reza.
I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
I want to follow up to a question that Director Vanoy just had. So in a situation like, first of all, Groppe, Project Stay, and Transition are all in my district. And I've spent a considerable amount of time in there because I know who these programs typically serve. They're very specialized programs that serve special students, a lot of times include Black and Latino male students in particular, and I'll come back to that point at another point in my questioning. But for those schools, Transition in particular, how do you remove the only English teacher?
Administration.
Director O'Halloran, Director Ferguson. So I spent quite a bit of time talking with the school leader, Mr. Murphy, around how best to staff. The school leader made the discretion that he thought it best to staff the building with all individuals who had the alternative licensure, which created the greatest amount of flexibility to be able to service the students. Again, Transition is one of our schools who has been moving more and more towards the alternative programming, meaning the GED option 2 or the competency-based program.
Director Ferguson, follow
Yeah.
up?
So you're saying Principal Murphy?
Ultimately, like as we were going through the staffing cert, yeah, like we talked about what would be the best way to service his kids, and as more and more of them are utilizing the competency-based programming that's there, he made the discretion to have that alternative license be the driver of his staffing. I would add, though, that Transition is a school that would be a recipient of the instructional facilitator, who I think can step into that role in a meaningful way around increasing both reading and mathematics proficiency.
Director Ferguson, do you have follow-up on that?
Okay. I'll move to, first of all, I do want to acknowledge the teachers in the room and to say that during Teacher Appreciation Week, we do appreciate all that you guys do.
Agreed.
And I know it doesn't always seem like it, but I just would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge all of our teachers and for all the incredible work that they do. Were you about to say something?
Administration.
Director O'Halloran, Director Ferguson, I would be happy to meet with the academic superintendents from high school, with our principal leaders and some teachers from those transition schools between now and the vote, to make sure that they have a good listening session and that everybody understands the staffing, and to take feedback from the teachers and bring back a proposal to you all if there needs to be any amendments.
We already know what's going on. You're the one
Okay.
that needs to listen.
Thank you. Director Ferguson, do you have any more follow-up on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just gonna skip around if that's okay to my next question. So I just mentioned Black and Latino male students in particular. I'm concerned about Black males in Milwaukee Public Schools, and what alarms me is that Black males account for the largest constituent of students in MPS, yet they continue to fall dead last in terms of their academic achievement in this district. And for me, this is alarming. But what's even more alarming is that Black and Latino male achievement was slashed in this budget. And so I'm kind of concerned, and I would like to know, what would you say to, and I'm speaking to administration, what would you say to the Black students, male students, and maybe even the Black male student parents who see this budget and conclude that MPS doesn't care about Black students, male students?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran and Director Ferguson, thank you for that question. Obviously, I care deeply about the Black students within the district, and one of the things that we're doing is to lower class size so we can ensure that they are reading on grade level by grade 3. That's one part of the strategy. The other one is making sure that with this Office of Black Male Student Achievement, we work with the leaders within that community to make sure that we are doing a few things. One is we need to make sure that we're doing equity analysis in all the policies that we're doing. That's one of the charges of this new team that's being formed. The second is to ensure that they get the resources in all of our schools, and the way that we're hoping to be able to do that is working with our BIT teams, our behavior intervention teams with our schools, with our psychologists, our social workers, and our counselors at every single school to drive the support programs. Another thing that we are doing is working with our students and our Black male student achievement leaders, as well as the other leaders of this office, to work with community-based partners to come into our schools to work with our students. This approach with our BIT teams in our schools will give us the opportunity to affect all of our schools rather than just some of our schools, because we didn't have enough enough staff in that office to really impact all of our schools. And we're looking for a district-wide strategy and working with our counselors, our social workers, and our psychologists on the support systems with that team around inclusion, belonging, and identity.
Director Ferguson.
And they'll monitor academics, they'll monitor attendance, they'll get mentors, they'll provide support, they'll do grouping, all of that they'll do.
Okay, so just two questions to follow up with
Thank
that,
you, yep.
Superintendent. So you said we didn't have enough staff to really have the impact that we needed across the district. And so our solution was to cut staff? Or I also heard you, excuse me.
Respectfully, I'm trying to hear Director Ferguson's question so that administration can respond. And if that is a problem, we can take a quick recess. And if you can't remove the sign, we will take a recess and the sign will be removed. Thank you.
That's my right. I can do that, though. I can do that, though. So please continue while I hold this sign up. Thank you.
I heard you reference this new team that's being formed. I'm assuming that this is going to address, kind of offset what has been cut from BLMA. If you could explain a little bit more about that.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Ferguson, and members, this team is going to be working with our psychologists, our social workers, our counselors, our administrators, and our teachers to put together the support systems and to work with community-led partnerships to be able to form clubs, activities, do groups, provide that kind of support in the school buildings across all our schools. They'll provide the leadership, the professional development, and the training, and then monitor the progress of our students in a very directed and intentional way so that we can catch students earlier and provide additional support and identify students who need support. Before they did some really amazing programming. I'm sure they'll continue to do some of that programming as a team and provide some similar partnerships with some of our nonprofit groups out there and do that within our schools. But when we had the coaches just simply couldn't get to 139 schools. And we want to be more intentional with these behavior intervention teams around their academics, around the climate and culture of the school, and identity supports and belonging.
Okay, I got two more.
Director Ferguson. Okay.
My next question is around the IB coordinators. Can you explain what happened here or what we're doing here? Because I'm a bit confused.
Yep.
And so.
Administration.
Director O'Halloran, Director Ferguson, thank you for the question, and members. The governor's audit had identified a problem with some of our district in terms of our position control. And I think this is one of the areas where we had positions that were called implementers, and we had believed that they were doing an instructional type of position at the school, but some principals had purchased implementers, but they were actually IB coordinators and doing IB coordination work. But in our system, it said implementer, so they got caught up in that. And so some of the schools that had IB coordinators and identified them as IB coordinators, we didn't cut them. But the ones that were caught up in the implementer, because we thought it was a position of implementer, that was not corrected. We said we would correct it, and once we got through all of the reconciliation, we did that, and those now have been corrected.
Thank you.
Okay. One more, and then I'm just going to see if anybody else has questions. Okay. Okay. Does anybody? Okay. Director Ferguson.
No, I'm saying you can go ahead.
Just in general, yes. Director Simpson. Oh. Do you have a follow-up question on IB coordinators? Oh, okay. I was thrown. I didn't think I thought Director Ferguson indicated that he had felt that the IB coordinator question was answered, and so I was just going to see if there were any other questions.
I did.
Okay. Director Jackson.
Okay. I want to. I don't think he's still here, but the gentleman that spoke on the contracts that with the school. So, if you've been here, that's probably been one of the biggest things that I've been talking about. More so, outcome-based contracts, because we do. At least my first 2 years, it was a particular tutoring company, and parents nor students knew about it, but yet they had a huge contract. So that was a huge waste of funds that we gave this particular company. But to your point on that, I've been very intentional in addressing that hugely, because that money can and should be right here in our own district. So that is something that I've been been doing with Matt as well, Mr. Chasen, over these past 2 years, to be more intentional about, and especially as you said earlier too, with contracts that's under $50,000, they don't come to the board, which again, that can be a trick that so many companies can use over and over and over again to get more money from our district. So if nobody else, I've been aware of that from day one, and it's not just on the construction side either, it's not just operations, it's with any company. Because again, there's no oversight, because it doesn't come to the board. But knowing that now, I would say, again, with Matt already, with myself, we definitely do something about it. But trust and believe me, I heard you loud and clear.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Do we have questions on this side? Looking over here. Director Simpson. Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I just related to the contracts. I did have some questions about the contracts that I was wondering. Well, maybe this is not a question, but we did hear one of the speakers talk about the $46 million deficit in contracted services. I think there's a little confusion around what type of services are included in that, and can we just be clear? What did the administration cut for that 40-something million? Was it, because I thought we also were including in that the charter school amount, not just like typical contracted services like transportation, nutrition. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone was really clear on that. If administration could comment on that amount.
And the $46 million that was referenced in the presentation as being cut from contracts. Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Zambor. One of the things I think that's been more confusing in the budget that we need to discuss and make sure that it's clear and transparent is that we had 7 charter schools that left the district. They are considered contracted schools, and they have contracts with us, and so that's just in there as like a legal term as a contracted expense. That $40 million is the expenses that we're not having to pay, but the revenue that we're being able to benefit from because they left the district because of the way that the funding works in the district with 3-year averaging. In the state of Wisconsin, they have 3-year averaging. They have a hold harmless that allows you to hold on to those funds even though those students aren't here. We don't have to pay those expenses out. Matt Chasen is probably a better explanation on Wisconsin finance than I am, and probably can explain it better. But the opposite is true too. If we take in a new student, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that student we only get 1/3 of funding for that student. So there's this 3-year averaging that happens with that, and that's where that $40 million is basically buoying the district. I want to remind the members that we have a lot of growing expenses within the district, utilities, health, compensation, benefits, salaries, food, nutrition, those costs are going up, transportation costs are going up. There's just a number of other factors in the budget. It's not just the salary line, but there are just more and more expenses to the district that you are aware of. Mr. Chasen, I don't know if you want to explain the $40 million any better than what I did.
Office of Accountability and Efficiency, is there anything you would like to add to that explanation, please?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran, Matt Chasen, OE. Yeah, I'll just note that in the 5-year forecast, we noted that we anticipated because of the loss of enrollment in our contracted schools, that specifically our non-municipality charters, that the payments that would have gone to them, roughly around 40 million, would fall off of the expenses in FY27, and that's what's noticed in that slide.
Thank you, Mr. Chason. Director Zombor, do you have
Thank
follow-up?
you, Chair O'Halloran. I think there is definitely, we have a lot of contract expenses, and I think the taxpayers and our students and educators deserve us to scrutinize all of.
I'm sorry. Should we take a break? We'll take a 5-minute break, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming back from a brief recess. We had left off on Director Zambor. You had a question or a comment.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Yeah, we were just talking about contracts and how I was talking about how important it is to our students, educators, taxpayers, that we really scrutinize every penny that we're spending. I know we've heard, I think when we were on the way back there, I heard someone yelling about Saz's catering. I think there's not certainty always about why contracts are spent, but we know Saz's catering, that's for Golda Meir's prom. And I don't think anyone on the stage wants to cut Golda Meir's prom. That's an opportunity kids deserve. We've heard contracts being scrutinized about Board of Regents. Well, we're not just giving money to the Board of Regents, we're giving money to the Board of Regents to help pay for dual enrollment credits for kids. And so when there's transparency around how we're spending the money, people see how a lot of the contracts are directly related to student opportunities and student success. Some of it's also legally required around transportation for private schools. Some of that, we don't have a choice around that. But I do think there's always room for us to apply additional scrutiny. And I think sometimes people do come to us with contracts that I think we should look at with a fine-tooth comb. And so I'm wondering, is the administration moving forward, would the administration be open to setting up a sort of task force to help review contracts?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Zambor, I think that's a great idea. Our team has been really in earnest looking at our contracts this year and doing a deep dive in all of our contracts, particularly the ones that were encumbered. And we've been closing out, I think Ms. Adamczyk has said that she spent nearly 300 hours and over 5 staff digging into those contracts to eliminate risk already. And then looking at future procurement and how we do contracts and the oversight of the board, absolutely. This is an issue I inherited, and I'm happy to have this added to the work that we're doing already. I think Ms. Sava would like to talk about some of the controls that we have already put in place as well.
Director O'Halloran and Director Zambor, Aicha Sava, I did want to also mention, I think it was in the March AFP, we had come forward with Ms. Adamczyk to talk about some of the new controls we were putting in place. But one of the things that we have, that her and her team have really been looking into, as some of the public mentioned, were those contracts under $50,000, and where some of the schools do have that discretionary spending. So we have been looking at what some of that spending is and adding in controls, because as schools or departments are spending under that limit, if they're all buying similar things or whatever the service or good may be, we might, as a whole, for the district, not be getting the best price that we can be getting. So some of Janine's team members have been really looking at that, and they actually have been working on this for months, where we will be implementing certain procedures on, I think I also said it at that AFP meeting as well, is how we can have like unit rates and have like a blanket list of vendors, and then for some of these other purchases that the schools do that might be IT related, having it go through our IT director so that there's more of that control and consistency, so that we're not using like 10 different vendors for the same service where we might be able to get a better price. So we are really looking into that, so that, $5,000 doesn't really seem like a lot, right, in a $1.6 billion budget, but when you add it all up and you could be saving $20,000, $30,000, that's still, right, that's a lot of money that we can use for something else still. So we will be bringing forward some of those new policies, and then we will be implementing and rolling out training at the school level as well before the new school year.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Zambor, why don't I bring back probably, let's say in the June meeting, process for that task force, and get that back and report back to the board on how we would do that.
Director Zambor, is that timeline and task force concept development work? Okay.
Can I do one more follow-up on contracts?
Sure, and
Thank you.
before we lose that thought, can Office of Board Governments make sure that that's added to the June agenda? Thanks. Okay, now your next question.
Thank you. Well, and it's really, it's related, but I also just want to signal that another area where I think we could potentially save in contracts is by pre-auditing contracts. I know this is something the state of New York used to do. I've probably mentioned it before, but I think now that we've caught up with the audits, I think finance is finally coming up for some air after being really focused on catching up from some kind of deferred maintenance. I know the state of New York has been able to save a lot of money by pre-auditing contracts. They're able to do a really a good double check to make sure that there's not duplication of services, having someone double checking exception to bids to make sure exception to bid is truly falling under whatever it's classified as exception to bid, that it's meeting those requirements. And sometimes vendors knowing that there's a pre-audit of the contract, it deters them from entering into a contract maybe that has like loose metrics or maybe asking for more than they should be asking in the contract. So would love to maybe work with Office of Accountability and Efficiency on something like that in the future. We don't have to do it tonight. But I do think as the future budgets get tighter and tighter, like we have to start preparing for that now because this is a hard discussion this year, and it's going to be really hard in the next budget cycle. So.
Thank you, President Zombor. Administration, do you have anything to add, or Office of Board Governance or Office of Accountability and Efficiency, or just more to be revealed? Okay. I did see Director Simpson's hand at one point.
Yes, thank you so much. Back to the alternative schools. I'm just wondering if after it sounds like you are maybe going to meet with some of the leaders from those schools, if maybe after that happens, we can get an update brought back to the board around just any staffing updates, whatever you have. I do want to just point out one thing though. So I was just trying to look at all three schools, and it seemed like Project Stay was losing paraprofessionals. The other two schools, I was trying to go look at the school, like line by line thing, but if we could just have an update on that, because I do think that, especially in those, at all of our schools, but it just seems like when we're dealing with a lot of probably learning issues that need to be addressed, maybe some social emotional learning issues that need to be addressed, the para support would be beneficial. So if after those meetings happen, an update could be brought to the board as soon as possible.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Simpson, we will definitely bring that forward, and I'd like to do it before the vote. So within the next 2 weeks, we'll make sure that we have another listening session with our alternative school community, and then also any adjustments that we're going to need to make, if we can make adjustments, and we'll bring that forward to the board.
Does the timeline work for you, Director Simpson?
Yes, ma'am, it sure
Sounds
does.
good. I do see Director Funds is, are you
Could I
okay
just-
if, sure.
Is this transition?
Director Funds will just wait.
Two more things, very
All right,
quickly,
Director
very
Simpson.
quickly. I was wondering with the student support and belonging team, yet to be named, it sounds like officially, the number of staff that would fall under that group, because I think we could just have a number that would be helpful.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Simpson, and members, that will have 9 staff members in the community that will fall under the Department of Family and Community Engagement. There'll be and partnerships, and that's intentional because I really want this team to work and help us get partnerships and further get additional grant funding for this work to move forward. I think many of you know that many of the coach positions were funded with ESSER funding in the district during the time of COVID to provide additional support during that time for students. and it was a very tumultuous time. And so now this strategy will work with our behavior intervention teams and work directly with our social workers, our counselors, and our psychologists embedded within every school. And we're going to strengthen our MLSS, which is our multi-tiered learning system within our schools to monitor student progress.
Thank you. And then just a tiny comment. I just want to thank administration for tackling class size and trying to put that forward. It is something that, as an early childhood educator myself, I would have loved to have heard someone address, because sitting in a classroom of 31, 32 first graders who are all trying to learn, sometimes with a peer support, sometimes without, it is a big job. So I appreciate the effort to do that, and I have been asked by people in this audience to do that and to work on it. So I'm glad that you have finally kind of like taken that on as a cause. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Simpson. Okay, I did see Director Fonz's hand.
Yes. So I have three primary areas of concern that I've heard a lot about over the last months. One is process, and I think we've talked about this numerous times, about having meaningful input from staff and community. And I know there's been a lot of sessions where that administration's been in schools and in the larger community, but many people have felt that many of those were pro forma, and there wasn't enough actual input, and then decisions would be made and then they'd be unmade, so that I think in the next round, next year, we have to make sure the process is clearly stated and mapped out so that the community at large and and the stakeholders understand what the process is, because I think there was confusion about that, and we did have major changes in the process. So that's number one. Two is alternative ed, and I think we've had somewhat of a conversation of that, and I think we may have some adjustments there. I personally would hope that would happen, particularly given the need for different ratios within those schools. If we really do have a commitment to alternative ed, which I do, and I think many of the members of the board and of administration do, I think we could make adjustments there. I hope so. And then contracts also, we've had some discussion. Director Zambor has talked about that and how we need many more controls that we haven't had in the past, I think. And task force, I think, is a good step in that direction.
Thank you for your priorities. Administration, do you have any response to any of that? I think we've discussed some of it, but if there's anything you would like to add.
Chair O'Halloran and Director Fonz and members, Director Fonz had given me some feedback about the timeline and being just more clear on the timeline. The only thing I can say is, we'd had a timeline. We didn't anticipate a $50 million deficit. And then, our budget director leaving and then having to just kind of step in and make sure that we're able to look at every school's budget and taking the time that we needed with our school leaders over those 4 weeks with our budget analysts to really look at the overspending that had been identified. I think that timeline took a lot of attention, and I wasn't anticipating the overspending that I discovered. And that took a little bit more time than what we thought, and had to really reconcile those books. I wanted to do the stand-ups earlier so that the parents could feel more comfortable, that we could get the 30 hours to 40 hours we had said that we were going to do back in January. But I just didn't feel it was going to be responsible if I didn't have the books reconciled. I did not want the audited books to come back and not have good reconciliation done. And that just took a little bit more time with the team than anticipated. But next year, definitely, we will make sure that we have a timeline that is very clear where different groups can engage and make sure that we're using that feedback and the recommendations that we bring forward.
Thank you. Do we have questions?
One more before Director Reza.
Okay.
Just, if you can explain with the district downsizing, how does, going back into the classroom, how do you lose seniority in that space?
Chair O'Halloran and Director Jackson, seniority has been a long-standing practice in the district, and many districts actually, and many other fields as well, and it gives credit for years of experience. And so the way that we do it here in Milwaukee is that we, as part of the handbook in layoff, you lay off in seniority order. And what that means is you look at the job description and you look at job alike. So for instance, we have instructional facilitator positions that we have created, much like our former SST positions in the district that principals told us that they loved. We've created that within a framework that also is guided by what the grant is requiring out of that job as well, that is restricting some of the ways in which we are able to use seniority. It's not just clear seniority, but you match it to the job description, and then you take the most senior person, you hire that person first into the positions that are available, and you work the list down. Also, we have a right to recall, so that if in fact we are able to add additional positions, for instance, with the assistant principals, they have 1 year right to recall. So if they stay in the district, they are able to move into those districts based on their seniority. There is one other shift and change that gives me a lot of consternation around seniority, so I'll be fully transparent with the assistant principals and the way that these are going, is that there's some bumping going on. I think this is the challenge. So there are schools that didn't have any enrollment drop and maybe didn't lose any APs, but because you had a teacher in your building who was a 23-year teacher in the 23-year teacher in the building, beloved, had been talked into becoming an assistant principal the past 2 years. She now moved into a different employee group. She moved in the administrative employee group, and now she only has 2 years of seniority. That doesn't account for her 23-year commitment to the district and membership in that community, and she can be bumped out of that community and into a community somewhere else because of the rules of seniority and the way that they work. I am trying to work with the city on that and our city attorneys and see if there's just any way around it. But I think that that would put risk to the organization if we did, because that's not how we've historically applied seniority in the district. We are in the future, and I know Mr. Maniscalco is up here, going to be much more specific about our job descriptions in the future. So, for instance, an immersion school may need to hire an immersion school assistant principal who has that language, and that would be a requirement in the job description. And then you might have a school that has Montessori and they need to be Montessori trained. Those are the types of things in the future that we can do, but because the assistant principal job description was a general job description, we have to lay off in seniority order. I don't know if I've explained that well enough, Mr. Maniscalco, if there's anything you want to correct for the record or anything additional you'd like to share as the expert.
Thank you, Dr. Casalius. Good evening, Board. Just a couple things I did want to clarify, if that's okay. So to answer your question, Director Jackson, how does someone lose seniority? We have two different types of seniority in Milwaukee Public Schools. We have your hire date seniority when you first started at MPS, and then we have what's called union seniority date. Because we're a first-class city school district, we have civil service rules we have to abide by per the city of Milwaukee. That's where the union seniority date comes into play. So you could be a teacher in Milwaukee Public Schools for 20 years, and if you transition to, say, being an assistant principal, you are now on the ASC schedule, your union seniority date will switch to the first day now that you're an AP, essentially losing all those teaching years experience because you're now an assistant principal. So you're starting fresh over. The same thing is true now for assistant principals that we've laid off, that have been assistant principals for a long time. So if they've been an assistant principal for 10 years, some of them are going back to the classroom. So we are hearing that now their union seniority date is changing. So for the purposes of being teachers in classrooms, it is starting over, is kind of how it works. So that's where you're hearing, what does it mean that I'm losing seniority? They're losing the union seniority piece.
Dominic,
Is that clear?
Could you clarify, though, on how seniority works, though, in terms of steps and lanes and salary, though, when you're placed? So you don't lose it, you don't lose those years of experience.
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of salary placement, we still count all the years of service for our staff internally through this process. So for an assistant principal going back into the classroom, for example, we are granting all of their years of service as teachers, as administrators, and we are giving them the max amount of steps on the salary schedule. We are trying to do everything we can to retain our staff. That is one of many strategies that we're trying to work through, and salary placement is no exception to that.
Any follow-up?
No.
Okay. Director Reza.
I mean, I have multiple questions in regards to all the all additional information that was provided. So I will email Dr. Casilius my questions, because or else we could be here all night. So, thank you.
Okay. I see Mr. De La Cruz.
I wanted to know, like, with this $46 million deficit, this is a one-time thing of us trying to climb out of the debt. And I'm wondering, for promoting the district's, like, fiscal health, with next year, with all of these contracts and stuff we are cutting to save the money now and pay it back, where will that money be reinvested in the upcoming budgets?
Thank you. Administration?
Director O'Halloran and Mr. De La Cruz, as well as members, we are using the funding that we have to deal with the budget. So some of the cuts are taking care of that. And then we've made investments in our class size, and we have to also pay their bills. So we anticipate that those are ongoing costs. We will have continuing increases in health benefits and compensation. This year, it's around $20 million. Energy costs are anticipated around 5.8%. We anticipate that's going to continue to go up over 2 or 3 years. There's not going to be much change there. Transportation, I do plan to bring forward a transportation study to the board that could provide some additional savings for us that we could use. In the future, we'll need to also address special education services to students. So if in fact the legislature does provide some additional revenue to the district, like just coming good on their 42%, we'll use some of that revenue for special ed services, and those services will continue ongoing expenses as well. And so it's both to cover bills and to provide some investments in the choices that we've made in this budget.
Mr. De La Cruz, did that answer your question, or would you like follow-up?
I just want to follow up on, like, will any of it be used for, like, expanding some of, like, these classroom programs? I know we're investing in classes. I didn't know if we were going to invest in, like, maybe paying more for some of those positions so we can make it more appealing, so we can try and fill more of them, if that's possible.
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Representative De La Cruz. That's actually a really good question for Mr. Maniscalco, because one of the things that we were working on when he first came, and then we got the deficit, which was a bummer, is to make the budget more progressive, which is something I know that Director Fonz has also brought up, that he appreciates with some of the increases that we're able to do with some of our low-wage workers. We got a start on that this year with the CHAs and the paraprofessionals and giving them some additional compensation or additional hours. Is that good enough? I don't know, but we did a compensation study a few years ago, and Mr. Maniscalco and I, really early on in his days, just starting with the district, talked about the budget coming up and how excited we were to do some more progressive budgeting around our low-wage workers, and we hope to be able to do that over a 2 to 3, 4 year period, depending on how the how the revenues come into the district, but that would be one of my top priorities, along with protecting services for students. I heard some other conversation with the students at the 7 high schools I went to. They need investments in athletics. They want investments in their equipment and uniforms. They want to see more clubs and activities, which we did set aside $2 million for, but unfortunately, I think that has been challenging to get up off the ground. We will do more work around that. And then they want to see some investments in better food quality, and that's going to, scratch cooking costs more money to do. And so at least on the initial part of scratch cooking, that costs a little bit more to do, which we are also committed to. So there are some things that the students are telling me that are very important to them that we're going to try to also make investments in over the next couple of years as well. But I think Mr. Maniscalco can talk just a little bit about the compensation study briefly.
Thank you, Dr. Caselius. Board members, Mr. Mateo de la Cruz. Great question, and I love that you're asking that. Very early on, I started in September at Milwaukee Public Schools, and one of the things that was identified was compensation. Compensation in all classes, really, in looking at how do we advance our compensation program in a way that retains staff, particularly our lowest wage workers. I presented to the board in November. At that presentation, I did an entire compensation review, which at that point we had done almost every hourly bargaining unit. We had done a whole compensation analysis, which was a continuation from the 2019 one that was completed. We looked at market analysis, we looked at internal equity, we put a whole plan in place in terms of how to right size the internal equity components to that, which is one of the most biggest pieces, because you can get it right now moving forward, you just got to reset those baselines, but what do you do for the thousands of staff that are already here that are flipped in terms of compensation? So we put together this strategy. Dr. Caselius and I spent hours and hours and hours in a room talking about how do we plan for this. We presented to the board. Maybe a couple months after that, we started getting wind of the deficit and the money, and we did a whole analysis in terms of what the timeline was going to look like and how we were going to roll it out and the phase-in schedule, and then just kind of got flipped upside down with a $46 million deficit because all money's green, and with that compensation structure and strategy, there was a cost associated with that. So the good news is we've already done the work. Now we just need to consider the timing and the phase-in schedule of that so that staff can feel valued, appreciated, rewarded, and that's so they stay here. We want them to stay here, and we're going to be working on that very soon. I hope that helps.
Mr. De La Cruz?
That satisfies my question.
Okay, thanks. Last round, yep. Director's on board.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I was wondering if the administration could talk a little bit about the vacancy adjustment. I know we use a vacancy adjustment for when positions remain unfilled, a vacancy adjustment in the budget, so if they're unfilled due to turnover, retirements, delayed hiring, and I know in past budgets we've indicated that this can give us some risk in the budget if that number is wrong. If it's too high, we risk a deficit, and if it's too low, our budget's not essentially balanced. So I'm wondering if the administration can talk about that, because we did hear a lot about vacancies tonight, and we're making some really big changes in the budget. And I think we've also had a vacancy adjustment that was too high in the past. So just want to see what did we do with the vacancy adjustment in this budget, and do we still have work to do, or are we comfortable with where it's at?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Zambor, thank you for the question. When I first came to the district, this is one of the things that I was most troubled by, is that we had accounted for $75 million in the budget, which truly was not $75 million worth of vacancies. And that introduces a lot of risk to the organization in terms of if we did fill those vacancies, we would now be in a deficit position. I knew that that was a problem. I've talked about it a lot as the superintendent, that I wanted to deal with it and deal with it head on. So in the fall, before the October adjustment in '25, we were able to have some additional revenue come to the district, and we took that $22 million and bought down the vacancy adjustment and just had some fiscal prudence at that time to do so, and we didn't bring any new investments at that time with that new additional revenue so that we could ensure that we were able to bring down that risk to the organization. That brought us at about $53 million. In this budget, there's about an additional $17 million that we have booked for the vacancy adjustment, so that brings it down to the realistic $35 million that we'll have on the books for the vacancy adjustment. And that is a real vacancy adjustment that we would have with our nearly 10,000 employees in a district this size.
Director Zambor.
Will we have, thank you for that, that's helpful. In October, is that a good time to just revisit the vacancy adjustment once you know kind of over summer how much hiring we've done, just to make sure that we're budgeting appropriately? Because I think the vacancy adjustment, especially with the deficit last year, keeps me up at night too. I want to make sure that we're not, that we don't have one that's too high.
Administration.
Director Halloran and Director Zambor, thank you for that question. Yes, absolutely. It's something that we will come back to you in October as part of the October adjustment. We'll have a more accounting of our books because it's going to be our actual budget that we adopt. And so absolutely, we'll come back with that. I think Ms. Sala would like to say something.
I would also just like to add, Chair O'Halloran and Director Zambor, that by the time we do come back for October adjustment, we'll know the October 15th, we'll know our equalization aid, and then we'll also have better, accounting of our enrollment. So I think at that time, we'll be able to know exactly kind of where we are going forward.
We did also have a membership audit done, and that was just finished. I don't know if you want to speak to that as well, which we'll come back in October with as well.
Thank you. And Office of Board Governance, can you make sure that the October agenda includes a revisiting of the vacancy adjustment and whether it's at the appropriate level, please? Thank you. Any other members? Questions, comments? Oh, Mr. Matt Chasen.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran, Matt Chasen, OAE. I just want to expand on some of the visibility that the administration has already shared with respect to the impact of this budget on your statutory fund balances. We don't want the board to receive any surprises with respect to what we saw at the end of '25, having the negative fund balance. So I'll just note again, there is about $40 million that is set aside to help restore that negative fund balance that we saw at the end of '25. The budget also, as currently constructed, will consume or use about $6 million of fund balance in your Fund 46, which is your long-term capital improvement trust fund, and we'll also use about $20 million in your recreation or Fund 80. Now, neither of those necessarily imply that anything is wrong. It doesn't necessarily imply that anything is imprudent, but I just want to make sure that you have the visibility of those things as usage of fund balance as we move this budget forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chasen. I did want to kind of piggyback on that then. So with this budget proposal, the expectation then is that we're filling that gap or that the deficit in the fund balance. What would our fund balance, do we have a projected ending balance for the fund balance? And do you feel comfortable with the level, at the projected level?
Chair O'Halloran and Mr. Chasen as well. We're aware of those items in the budget, and am I comfortable? I'm not comfortable because I know that we're in a really difficult place of cleaning up our finances over many years here, and things can change. We're still working on position control, and we're doing the best that we possibly can with the budget information that we have there, and it is accurate. And so, but it's a hard budget. It is a difficult, challenging budget, and there's like no wiggle room in this budget. And so we have to be really, really disciplined in our spending. We have to be disciplined in our monitoring and in our counting. That's why these monthly to actuals are going to be so important to the board and to the public to see those clearly and for us to point out. There has been history of overspending, and we have put in place new controls that we have to monitor, but all of this is new controls, new monitoring. There's new personnel in the budget office. There's just a lot of transfer and risk that I just want to be very transparent about as we continue to work through what's a very challenging budget. But at this point, I am confident that we have done everything within our means looking at this budget. Our team has spent hours, line item by line item. Will we find things? Maybe. But if we find them, we will fix them. And we're doing everything right now to make sure that we have looked at every single line. And with Mr. Chasen's help as well, looking at our budget, we're able to continue to look at it and fix where we need to fix. And by time you vote on this budget in May, hopefully we have addressed all of your concerns. We've addressed the community's concerns as best that we can. I've always said to the principals, you will have everything you need. You may not have everything that you want in this budget. But we're doing some really incredible things to pivot to an academic agenda and an academically focused budget on our classrooms and protecting those as best we can in the current situation that we have. So am I comfortable? No. I wish we had a better budget. But am I confident in the numbers that we have right now in front of us? To the best of our ability, we have looked and spent hours and hours on our finances. Aicha?
Director O'Halloran, I just wanted to add that by the time we do come to fall adjustment, since we are caught up with all of our auditing and financials, we will have a better projection, or we will know, our audit won't be completed at that time, but we will have a better understanding of where our 26 year-end fund balance will be, which will help us guide, the 27 fall adjustment.
Okay. As part of the October adjustment discussion, it would be, I would just like to see what a district of our size with the budget that we have, what our target should be to have a fund balance that would put us in a comfortable position, because what I'm hearing is we're going to get to zero, and that's still not good enough to be responsible stewards, because we have, gas prices that are going to rise or whatever, and we just, even if it's not saying like we can get to where we should be in the next year or two, it would be good to know what that number is, so it's a target and it's something that we're all talking about and we all know that number, and we have a plan to start making progress on the savings that we should have in our bank, essentially.
Chair O'Halloran, I'll say that GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, their recommended best practice is to have 5% of your final audited expenditures as your fund balance. So that would be a lengthy process for us to get there. Obviously, it would take a couple of years, but I think it is a lofty goal, and we do need to, build back our fund balance so that we can be in good fiscal health.
Thank you. And I know that complicates our school funding, because I don't think building up your fund balance, I think that implicates, it has ramifications for your state equalization aid. So I understand that there's it's not a straight line, easy answer. That said, I do think we should be having that conversation. And I see Director Zombor's hand, and I'm just going to stop talking.
Chair O'Halloran. Some of the work that we've been doing around the policies, I know Mr. Chasen's going to be bringing forward some of the 6,000s in partnership with finance. We did talk about this week in our weekly Matt, Tina, and Brenda meeting. And the fund balance policy is something that I know Matt's looking at to bring forward very, very soon. So as a board, I think it's a good discussion for us to have. It would be good to know what other Council of Great City Schools are doing around that so that we can set the policy moving forward and restore that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I know Director Reza said she'll email hers. Director Herndon, I think, are you emailing? Okay, so more questions coming your way. I don't see any other hands, so I am just going to read the closing that just as a reminder, the board will continue its work on the budget during the month of May. The board will hold a public hearing on the budget on May 12th at 5:30. This committee will hold 2 more meetings to discuss the budget. These meetings will be held on May 19th and 26th. All meetings will be held here at Central Office and will start at 5:30 p.m. Public comments will be accepted at all meetings. There being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.